Hello and welcome to a new video. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. Today's video is a compilation of all the videos I've made building the Mike Bloomfield guitar, also called the Mikey guitar. It's everything I've done on this guitar up until now, and so I'm putting it all into one giant long video for you guys to enjoy. And yeah, while you're watching it, I'll eat this giant gingerbread cookie that my sister made for me. It's a Japanese construction worker. Don't ask why. So yeah. Delicious. Brains. I hope you guys are gonna enjoy this. I'm making it because maybe someone doesn't celebrate Christmas or doesn't have anyone around them to do that with, and so I'm making this video hoping it will help someone have something fun to watch, because it's gonna be quite a long video. So pour yourself your favorite beverage, whatever it is, coffee, whiskey, a giant glass of wine, and I don't know, find a nice snack. It doesn't have to be someone's head. And just lean back, relax, and enjoy this really enjoy this guitar being built, I suppose. And we're gonna do fun and interesting things to it next year, which isn't that far away now. And yeah, I'll see you guys next year when I get back, when I'm ready and all well from all the cookies I've eaten. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. This cookie is delicious, and it's hard to focus on making video while eating this. But yeah, I'll see you next year. Until next time, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and don't forget to stay awesome and cool. I've done some things to this guitar already, like for instance, I've switched the nut around so that the lower E is on the opposite side so that I can play it. This is very simple to do on some guitars. On some guitars you'll have to make a new nut. On this guitar I just flipped it around. I've also put strips of electrical tape as fret marks. Those are some of the basic things that you can do to guitar just to get started. I've switched the tip around so it's now on this side, so I can stand up and play the guitar with the strap. The next two things I've done are a little bit more advanced, and what I've done is I've taken the electronics and I've pushed them through so they're in the cavity, and I've switched around the output jack so it's no longer here but moved up here to where the tone is. That means that the cable won't stick out here in a weird angle where my arm is when I'm playing. It will stick down here, and I can use an L-shaped plug-in to make it lie smoothly across the body and not be in the way. I can even tug it behind my guitar strap. These are very simple things to do, and they're also very simple to reverse. All I've basically done is put masking tape on the inside so that no dust will collect on the inside. All of these things I did before starting this video because they're very minor things that you can do very quickly and easy. And if you don't know anything about guitar building, you can do these things without any issues. In this video, however, I'm going to take the entire guitar apart and I'm going to reshape this horn to make it look more suitable for this guitar. Because if you look at Mike Bloomfield's guitar, it's a little bit weird and wonky how they've just cut straight in and made something that doesn't follow the aesthetics. And it's basically the way I would have done it if I was asked to do this for him. And that's why I've decided to make the guitar look like his guitar as much as I could. And that's also a little bit of the reasons why it's relicked. I do like relicking guitars, so it's fun. And hopefully you'll think this is fun too. So let's just start taking all the parts off this guitar. First off, we have to remove everything, which you've just seen me do. So here's the body without anything. If you have a neck that is glued in, it's a little bit more fiddly and a little bit more complicated, but it's not that bad. If you have a template for a Telecaster, you can use that. If you don't, you can make one by basically just taking the body you have and drawing around and making a new one. And then flipping it over the other way, and you can line it up the other way and make a mark for this here. Basically, you see how it's flipped around. Now, I feel like having the body a little bit off-centered will make this more look like it's supposed to be a left-handed guitar. So I'm pushing the template off-center a little bit, like this, and I'm taking a pen and I'm just marking out on the body where we're gonna cut. So as you can see right now, there's the carve that is, and here you can see the line for where it is. Now obviously for what I'm gonna do now, you need a router. They're not that expensive and they're not that hard to get, and you don't need to buy a super expensive one. You don't need, for small things and for your first router, you don't need to buy the most expensive one you can find. So I'm just gonna take a jigsaw and I'm gonna cut this out, and I'm gonna stay a little bit on the outside of this line because a jigsaw's blade can wander a little bit like this, and I don't want to have to deal with that. So we're just gonna get to it, basically. There's no more to say about it than that. And we can already see how this is going to be a nicer guitar than what happened to Mike Bloomfield. So let's just get the template, put it in the right place and clamp it down so that we can get the router and do what we have to do. There you can see the clamps. And here is the router. It has a bit in it with the bushing, so it can go around. And it looks pretty good. The router isn't wide enough, so I need to take the template off so I can go the rest of the way. Here we have the body right now. And don't worry, we're going to do some cleanup and reshaping, and it's going to look even better. So it looks a little bit wonky right here, and it goes in not really as far as you might want, but we're gonna fix it, don't worry. Okay, so I didn't press recording. I thought I did, but I didn't. What I did was I flipped the body over and I used another kind of bearing. This one has the bearing on the other side, and I just cleaned it up. See now the way the horn looks, and it's not perfect yet, but it will be soon, and it looks a lot nicer. So I'm just gonna take a file, and I'm gonna use my Japanese saw file, and I'm just gonna make this here where the neck is gonna be. I'm just gonna make it fit a little bit better, and I'm gonna take the neck and I'm gonna put it back in, and I'm not gonna do anything with the neck in place. I'm just gonna feel how it is, because on the other side here the transition is good, but here it's a little bit rough, so I'm gonna take the neck out. So here's my orbital spinner. So I'm gonna put this one in, and then we can start it, and it spins and it moves up and down, making sounding very nice. You just move back and forth, and you just keep on moving. You never hold it still. Just slowly move it back and forth. And as you can see, it looks really nice there right now. So I'll take the neck and I'll fit it into the body. And as you can hopefully see, it is almost perfect. We need to sand a little bit more. So just sand a very little amount, put it back in. Need to take off more up here. And just go back and forth. Tiny little gap there, right there. It's so little that we need to get in. So just put the neck to the side. And there we have it. Now it's completely gone. So we're gonna just move on to shaping the rest of the horn. And I want to make sure to sand this place here so I get a nice even transition between all the faces. Because right here, the way the body looked before is meeting the way the body's going to look now. So spend extra time right there. I'll just take the finer side of my rasp and I'll just remove a little bit. And just look at the profile, like, what does it look like? Does it look okay? So something like that. And now we'll walk on to the next step. But you could obviously make any shape you want here. I'm just going for how I think I actually would have done it, because I call this how I would have built Mike Bloomfield's guitar. So this is what I actually would have done. But you could have any shape you want. You could go down in some other way here. You could have just gone in like this and then gone straight down and made a tiny little round over. If anyone is doing something like this, watching this video, please let me know how you want to do it, and I'd love to see pictures of the end result, because I think it's fun. So I'm just gonna sand a little bit more, because I can see right now that this goes to about there, but this goes about there, so I need to move this in a little bit to make a little bit more sense. So I'll be back super soon. Okay, so it's time to do the round over. I have a round over bit in the router, and I'm gonna hold it up and I'm gonna move it up to somewhere where the body is already rounded over and make a perfect match. And then I'm gonna lock it in place, and then I'm gonna move it over here, and I'm just gonna start the router. And you can see already how much nicer it looks. It's not perfect, and so we need to take file and we need to blend out some of the tiny little imperfections that will show up, like the lip of the lacquer here and this little bump here, because where the neck plate is going to go. And I can also use it to round over this side here, something like that. It's really nice. And now we just flip the body over and we do the same thing to the front. Okay, so here's the body right now. I haven't screwed it in place, so it might be a little bit difficult to see, but as you can hopefully see, it looks sort of symmetrical. But if you look really close, this horn is a little bit further down. Now we're gonna have to talk about the fact that you have open wood here. And thing is, for me it's gonna be super easy because I painted this guitar, so I have the paint that I used. I can just go in and color it in. I've shown you before how to spray paint, so you can go back and look at those videos if you're curious. But I want to talk about how to find paint. Some finishes you're not going to be able to find. It's like too difficult. You're going to have to like make them yourself. If, for example, you would have, let's say, a Silver Sky Nebula, which is a guitar I don't think you should cut up, mostly because it's going to be a very expensive guitar one day, and also because it's going to be really difficult for you to find that paint. You're going to have to go to a specialist that works with those kinds of paints and basically have them to match the colors. You can go to basically any paint store and get color matches. If you just bring your guitar body with you and say, hey, can you help me with this? It's not that difficult. It's only a problem when it comes to really, really unique special colors. Like, for example, the nebula on the silver sky. But for example, a milk white or a eggshell white or, you know, candy apple red, it's gonna be easy. It's gonna cost a little bit of money. You can also just look at the spray cans that exist in hardware stores they come without being matched to any color. They might look close enough. You could make it into a feature. It sort of depends on how you design this horn. I'm gonna just paint this now. Here I have a dowel, the kind that you use to hang up curtains. And I've cut a tiny piece out to make a little plug. And now I'm just gonna begin with drilling this hole so it's big enough for this to fit in. The reason why I'm enlarging this is because there is a little bit of paint and sanding sealer on the inside, and I want as close bond between wood as possible. So let's just drill this out really quick now. Okay, so here I have the body and here I have the hole, and now I'm just gonna pour some wood glue all around, and I don't really care if it's messy because we're gonna do a lot of fixing up work soon anyway. And just put some in the hole as well. And since we're gonna, you know, plug up both ends of this hole, it doesn't matter if glue drips in to the cavity. And now I'm just gonna tap it in. And I'm using a rubber mallet because I don't want to make weird marks or to crack anything or anything. And I'm hammering very lightly. I put almost no force at all. I let the weight of the hammer do the work. And you leave it at something like this. It sticks out about maybe a ½ centimeter or something. And that's because the body is round, and so we're going to take off more here than in the middle. And so now, I hope you can see, we're just going to leave that to dry. We're going to take a tiny little piece of wood and just stick in these holes as well. But the hole is plugged. I've written a tiny little message on a piece of paper, and I'm rolling it up as a hidden little message, and I'm putting it into this hole here as a secret little hide thing. It's fun. You should do that to all your guitars that you build. I once, for example, built a guitar for a death metal guitarist, and I put a pentagram in the neck heel, hidden away, just as a fun little thing. He never knew about it. So yeah, I don't think he's watching my videos, so it'll be a little secret between you and me. Okay, so while this glue here is drying, we are gonna cut a lip on this body to plug up the hole. And I'm gonna use my router, and I hope you can see that I have a special bit in. And what this means is that this bearing here will ride on the inside of the cavity and cut a lip. You'll see very soon when I do it. These bits people are talking about them being extra dangerous. I think that if you're just careful and you know what you're doing and you're going slowly, you won't have any issues. Don't jump straight in. Don't push this up against the surface you want to cut. Go slowly in and go many times and work yourself up to where the bearing is up to the edge. And just make sure to measure everything. I already have a thin piece of wood here that I'm going to use for the plug. So I am going to move the bearing up to where the blade is super close to cutting into the wood, like so. And I'm going to lock it off. And this is going to be my 0. And then I'm going to move my stop and pinch the wood in between. And by pinching the wood, which, I don't know, it's like pitching a tent or something, I don't know, sounds stupid when I say it, then I know how much far down I need to go, because I can't move more than that. And so now I'm just going to put on ear protection and I'm just going to route this out. and I'll talk to you in a second. And hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. One thing that I forgot to mention was that I put tape on the other side of my router, and as you can see, it took some damage. And that's because you really don't want to mess up your lacquer. And as you can see, it's a little bit messy right now, but nothing that you can't buff out. I also forgot that I obviously have this cavity here. So I got a little bit of a mess right here, but don't worry, we'll fix all of this. It's not a problem. We're gonna take a measurement like this, and we're gonna transfer it to our piece of wood, like this. And we'll just put that down in 3 places, like this. And then we are also gonna take a measurement like this. It's almost, yeah, this one doesn't go that far. We're gonna have to switch. We're gonna do it like this instead. You can just hold this in place, like so. And we're gonna make a mark here, and we're gonna go a little bit further. Now we can just take and make these lines fit together. And we'll just take a saw and cut this out, what we've drawn. And it should fit over this, and we'll have to work in this weird shape. So I'll be right back. So I cut out the piece and I just rounded it over and shaped it to fit as close as possible. If you don't have a little bit of mistakes like I have here, this will be super easy and fast. I had to go in and do some minor changes, so it won't fit perfectly, as you might see, but it really doesn't matter, and you'll understand soon. But first I need to just put some wood glue down and glue in this little piece of wood. So I'm just gonna press out some wood glue like this, and then I'm just gonna take a stick and smear it around a little bit, trying to get it up on the walls as well. And then I'll take my piece of wood and I just press it into place. Since it's a little bit unevenly shaped, it needs to go in at a certain angle, which is this way, like so. And it's a very snug fit, but it's okay. And it sits a little bit under, which you'll understand real soon. I'm just gonna tap it into place. And now we're gonna have to wait for this to dry, but before we leave it alone completely, I'm gonna take a knife or a razor blade or any tool, and I'm just gonna destroy the edge of the paint here. And you might be like, why are you doing that? What the hell is going on with you? Are you crazy? And no, I'm not crazy. It's everyone else who's crazy. No, I'm joking. The reason why I'm doing this is because if you don't, you'll have a perfect edge, sharp angle. And when all the lacquer and everything on your guitar afterwards, when you're finished with the guitar, has dried and gassed off and you're going to polish it, later down the line at some point you will see these lines here. If you've seen my video where I made a SG guitar that was right-handed into a left-handed guitar, that guitar, it's still a perfectly fine and awesome guitar and I love it, but the lacquer in this edge here has sunken in, and it's just, you faintly see it. It's not something you see when I'm playing the guitar on stage or anything like that, but if you hold the guitar and you look at it, you can find the cavity that I removed. And it's just because you have this edge, and we just need to break this edge up and make it disappear, basically. Because if we don't have a sharp edge, then there won't be a sharp edge to appear on the body. So by just randomly breaking it, it won't be as visible for the eye to find later. So even though it may look kind of like I'm destroying this guitar right now, and I understand if some of you feel like, oh god, he is completely mad. please just trust me and keep watching, and you'll see later. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, in the next video we're gonna work on the neck, and we're gonna use the same principle there, and you're gonna get to see it there as well. So I'm just trying to basically remove the lacquer and get down to the sanding sealer under, and just scrape away and make a somewhat mess of this. And so now I'm just gonna leave this to dry according to my glue, and I'll be back real soon. Okay, so I'm getting ready to lacquer this body. It's in there good and everything. But if I put lacquer directly on the wood, then the wood will soak up the lacquer, and I'll get this weird texture thing, and it won't look like the rest of the body. And so we have to put sanding sealer on it. Now, depending on where you live, sanding sealer can be kind of difficult to get. And so what you can do is you can take the actual lacquer that you're going to put on, and you can thin it out in a cup with some spirit, if you're using a spirit-based lacquer, which we are doing because this is an old vintage guitar. And then you can just put that there and hopefully not spill a little bit. But as long as you dry it off immediately, it won't cause issues. And then we can just move this along so that it covers where we have. And this is a very thin layer of lacquer now, and so it will soak up real quickly. And then you have some working time when it's this thin, so don't worry too much. You really don't want to spill a bunch of lacquer like I just did, so maybe be a little bit more careful and don't look into the camera while you're pouring something on a surface. Actually look at what you're doing. That's my biggest tip for today, I suppose, because that was stupid of me. Anyway, so it's gonna take a while for this to dry up, and I have a little bit to clean up, and I'll be back real soon when this is sunken in. Okay, so after you've left this to sink in, and as you can see now it is sunken in, it's still a little bit wet, so I'm not gonna touch it. But as you saw just a couple of seconds ago, I basically flooded it, and that's how much it will sink in. Like, there is no real end to it. Now we're gonna lacquer it, and you can go about doing this in a lot of different ways. You can mask off the entire body, put a paper over here and a paper over there, spray paint over it. You can do like I'm gonna do right now, which works on this guitar because I have the lacquers and I have them in cans, because you put the lacquer into a spray gun and shoot it. So I can actually paint it on, and so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna, and this obviously depends on what kind of lacquer you're using and what color you're using, and you should always match everything with your body. So if you're doing something different than what I am, then you have to think about those kinds of things. I'm just fixing a guitar I've already made. You might ask yourself, well, this is very white and your guitar isn't the same color. That's because this is an old, well, no, it's not an old, but this is supposed to be an old guitar. So what happens is actually the paint doesn't yellow, it's the clear coat over that yellows. And so I've put on a yellowing clear coat. And we're still gonna have to clear coat this, so we're not over yet. Or it's not over yet, or yeah. And the thing is, you can actually put a decent amount of finish on, more than you would if the body was spray paint, because this surface is leveled and it's not going to move. So yeah. And now I'm just going to leave this to dry, and I'm going to coat it again because there is a little bit of weirdness going on. So I'm going to do it twice, and I'll be right back once I've left this to dry for a couple of hours and then put on a second coat. Okay, so now the guitar has been left to dry for about a week, actually, I think. And so the lacquer is all nice. I had to do that because I had to put a couple of layers on, because the plug I made was a little bit too low. Maybe you saw that in the earlier clips. So I had to put about 4 coats of paint. I only wanted to put 2, but I had to put 4. But anyway, everything is really nice and smooth now, and it looks the way it's supposed to do. But now we have to sand this area and make it nice and even and flat and perfect. And after that, we'll be able to put on the clear coat. And we're going to try to do our best to match up the clear coat and the coloring and make sure that it looks like, well, not new, which is what I was about to say, but look like it fits together with the rest. And it's going to be a little bit hard because if you look back at on how it looked before, and if you look at the body right here, you will actually see that I have more than one tone, because I put one kind of yellow here and then I made it a lighter yellow till here where it's white. So we're gonna have to try to make a similar shade, because I did that down here as well. And it's just because of how lacquer age, and I want to make this look the right way, basically. And there is a lot to say about trying to match up. I did my best to try to make this guitar seem like a guitar I hadn't built, but obviously I didn't want to take apart an actual guitar from the 60s. So yes, let's just start sanding this. And I'm gonna go to 1000 grit, because I don't really need anything lower than that. So here's the body now, and I've sanded it and everything. Here I have my lacquer, and it's a mixture now because we need to make everything work together. And so in this mixture here, I have lacquer, I have a stain that is spirit-based stain, and I have a little bit of spirit. It's a little bit thick, so I'm going to put a tiny bit of spirit, because you have to mix it. You should make a couple of try pieces and see what happens, and basically experiment with different layers to see if you can find the right color when you're doing this to a guitar that you haven't painted yourself. And so you can match the colors. So I'm putting this on and I'm moving it about, and I have to move it up to the end of the body, because if you look at the surrounding area of the body and the way it looks on his guitar, you'll see that he has an edge of whiteness surrounding, which is basically that the clear coat has faded away. And so I'm just going to put this out here and move it about and get it a little bit uneven and things like so. I don't know how well it turns out on the camera. And now I'm just going to leave this to dry, and we'll be back real soon. This will dry pretty quick. It will take a couple of hours, but it will dry pretty quick because there isn't that much lacquer in it, and there's a lot of spirit, and the spirit will oxidize or whatever you call it and disappear, and so then we can work on the next level. And the way I've done it on this body in different places is I've had different amount of stain, so that for example here, where when it was a right-handed guitar it would have been sanded down by his arm moving, I've done it a lighter coat to make it seem more faded, while here it's a darker coat. I don't know how well those details show up on the camera, but basically that's the way it is. And you can brush on lacquer. Obviously, when you're making a guitar that is supposed to look like it's been damaged, you can get away with a lot of things that you might not do if you're trying to do this to a guitar that is new. But you can actually brush on lacquer and let it even itself out by being on a flat surface that is leveled, which this guitar is on right now. So this surface is going to flatten itself out. And once all the clear coat layers that I'm going to put on have dried completely and hardened and done their thing, I'm going to sand and level the area, and then we're going to buff it. This is the standard things. If you've seen any of my other guitar building videos, you've seen me do this a bunch of times. So we're not going to go over it, but you can do that in just a spot. You can, sand a spot where you've fixed something and you can level it and buff it. And you don't need any special tools to do it. Obviously there are tools that make it easier and that makes it better, but you can do it the way I do in my videos. So anyway, I'm going to turn off the camera right now and leave it at this place. But just think about what kind of paints you have on the body and what kind of paints you have to match it up. And if you're using spray cans, you can spray the paint into a bucket like this, and you can put some spirit in it to make it easier to float, and you can brush with it. Even if you find the paint you need in a spray can, you don't need to use a spray can. It's easier because it's easier to get a nice, smooth, leveled surface with spray cans than it is to brush on. But you don't have to if it's not a possibility for you. Hello and welcome back to part 3 of the how I would build Mike Bloomfield's guitar. And in today's video, we're going to focus on the fret marks. If you have a right-handed guitar, you'll see the dots, but if you flip it over, there will be no dots because they're on the wrong side. One way that you can do this that is very simple and that will work somewhat at least is you can put tape where the fret marks are. And unless you play a lot with your thumb over where it might grab, it will hold up for a while at least. But let's take this tape away and do something a little bit more permanent that is an actual real solution. And let's also make this neck look nice by removing the dots on this side. And I'm going to show you how I do it. You can just drill holes with a bit that is the same size and plug them up, but you'll have tiny little perfect circles that are very easy to see. And so the way I do it makes it a little bit harder to spot where they are, hopefully. So let's get right into it, okay? So instead of drilling these holes out, I'll take a super tiny little chisel. It looks like a U. And what I do is I dig in and I just create a small groove right here. And I chip away at it. And I try to make it look a little bit wonky and asymmetrical and off, basically. And just do that to all of them. And I'll show you another one. I just go in, I cut in, and that one is a little bit too long, but that's okay. And then I turn it around and I'll just cut a little bit more. And the point here really is that if you make the shape a little bit weird, when we go to fill it up, no one will think about where the round lines are, because there are no round lines. It's just a weird, unsymmetrical shape. I really hope you can see what it looks like. It looks almost like a piece of wood have been shipped out. And so try to just make it look a little bit almost like you've chipped out, actually, is a good way to think of it. And so I'll just go over all of this and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so the next step is to fill this mark here. And obviously, depending on the color of your fretboard, you're gonna have to color match it differently. And you can use a bunch of things. You can use powder, you can use a pencil, you can use basically anything. And I'm just using a razor blade and I'm scraping, and I'm trying to get the scrapings to fall down into this little cavity that I've made and fill it up like so. And then I'm just taking some super glue and I'm just gonna put a couple of drops there, move it around with my razor blade so that it doesn't go everywhere, because I only want it where I want it. And it might look a little bit sloppy and weird right now, but don't worry, we can clean this up. And so hopefully you can see it's starting to disappear. It's not really gone yet, but we just keep on adding more and more black powder until we basically just plug up the hole. And if we go a little bit over, so we have a bump of super glue and color pigment, we can level it afterwards. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. It sticks up a little bit, but I'm gonna have to wait a couple of seconds for it to dry, and then I'm gonna do the next holes, and once I've filled all of them, we'll come back to it and level it, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so here we have one of the places where I've matched up the wood with the paint and the glue. And so now I'm just going to take my scraper. You can use a razor blade if you don't have one of these. It doesn't matter. And I'm just going to lightly start leveling this out. And you're just going to have to go back and forth and
and level it out. So you see how, I mean, you can see a little bit of it left, but I'm not done with it yet. You see how it almost immediately disappeared? And so if I just work on it a little bit more, just a couple of strokes, even everything out, and unless you know that a mark was there, you can't really see it, because the asymmetrical shape makes you not think of it. And so I've done it all the way down here now, and once I put the finish back over again, it's gonna look really good. Back here I did it a little bit bad, and I got a little spill here, so I'm gonna have to fix this. That's why the light wood is showing through. Okay, so I've put masking tape on, and I've squared it up to the frets and the back of the fret, so that I can take measurements and trace things out. So I start out by measuring between the frets with the calips, and I try my very best to make it even. Then I divide it by half, and I will make a tiny little mark, and I'll move it over to the other side, and I'll make a mark, and if they line up on the same place, I know that I've found the middle. And then use the underside of the calips where this thing here sticks out to get a measurement of the fretboard. See if can I make you see what I'm doing. Line it up to the line, and then I can see what it says, and then I can divide it. And once I'm happy, I can see if you can see what I'm doing. It's kind of hard to show. Once I'm happy, I'll make a mark like so. And so I have the middle of both. And now I can take an awl, and I can press it in there where I've made the mark. And because I use an awl, it will be transferred into the wood. You didn't see what I was doing. Come on, camera, please. And once I've found where I want to drill, I can just use an awl to make a mark. And because I've pressured it into the wood, it will be easier to drill. And so I'm just going to measure all of these out, and I'll be back to you real soon. On the 12th fret, you're supposed to have 2 dots, and so you can measure out the middle and then divide both halves and get perfect middles. Or you can decide a measurement from the edges of the frets inward. Basically, it's just a question of how you want to do it. As long as you do the same thing on both sides, this mark here and this mark here, it will look nice. Now I'm going to drill out the hole. I line it up with the mark I've made, and so it won't wander. I hold the neck as straight as I can and the drill as straight as I can, and I just go down about 1 mil into the fretboard, not more at all. And it's kind of hard to see maybe, but that hole is super small. Okay, so the holes have been drilled, and now I'm going to show you a super simple way of doing inlays. That is probably the most simple way you can do this, and it's also super fast. Buy epoxy clay and just make a little bead and press it into these holes. Roll off the excess and just keep on rolling and keep on pressing it in. And just remove the excess. It's so easy, you basically don't even have to use 2 hands. And once it's hardened, which is the only thing that takes time, you can just lightly sand or scrape the surface, and you'll get super flush. Nice looking little beads. That's a super simple way of doing it. Okay, so here's the neck now, and if you look at this edge, I don't know how to focus, but at least at first glance you wouldn't expect there to have been fret marks, and that's good. I'm gonna put finish on the side again. It's basically just a brush in some lacquer and just moving it up. Doing my best not to get it on the front, but knowing me, I most definitely will get it on the front. Okay, so a tiny little recap on his guitar. Obviously, they didn't cut the horn the way I did. That's the whole point of the series of videos. So if I put this pickguard on, roughly this is the way it would look. And the way they solved it here was that they measured out the same distance that you have around here, and they just cut a weird little notch like this. And you could definitely do that. Again, take the steps that I'm showing you and apply them to the kind of guitar you have and the amount of work you're willing to do. I am now at the stage where I'm making things to hide the fact that this was once a right-handed guitar. So that's what I'm sort of hoping to achieve. You have the control plate here, and it would have been sitting somewhat like this. Actually, most likely more like that. And obviously the reason why we're moving that is because the knobs would be in the way. And so we want to flip it over here. And the way we could find these metal parts that you get from Harley Benton are so cheap that you can bend them. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like my Fender Telecaster. I would not be able to do that. I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm getting off track. Sorry. The way I'm going to figure out where this goes is actually kind of simple. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this pickguard over, and I'm going to match it up the other way around, because I still want a connection where this cavity is. So I think that will make it very easy for me to find the placement, and I'm going to put it so it's a little bit straighter. Something like that maybe. Seems good to me. You could measure out a center line and measure the distance, but I'm gonna eyeball it. You could also just put it like to the side like this or something. That could be cool. Actually, I kind of like that. I actually think I'm gonna do that. I think that could make this guitar cool. So I'm gonna sidetrack from what my initial idea was, and I'm gonna put it a little bit on the side, just because I like how this looks. I'm using an awl. It's basically just a fat needle that you can poke holes with, and I'm doing my best to center punch a little tiny mark where the two end screws for this plate will go. And now I have those marks and I know where to drill, but we're not going to drill, not yet. First we're going to do some other measurements, because we need to establish some points. So we're going to put a piece of masking tape, and we're going to put it over these two dents, and I'm going to look for them. And so I poke through the tape where I want the plate to sit. I'm going to double check it, because tiny little dents are not that hard to fix. But filling an entire cavity might be a little bit annoying. And as long as you don't poke too far down and really dig in, you usually don't have to worry that much. I'm going to put two more pieces of tape down, one on each side of this, and that's just because my tape is a little bit thin. I don't have any thicker tape at the moment. Okay, so here's the body.
I've pinned it down with 2 screws. They're just a little bit over the surface. You can see like that. And it's just to hold this in place so that I can do some measurements. And first off, I'm gonna take a pen and draw around the outside here, just letting the pen ride against the edge of the plate. And that's why we have the masking tape, because we don't want to have problem. Then I'm gonna do a circle for all the holes. Basically just transferring everything. And then I'm gonna do some measurements. I'm gonna take this and hold it up to the edge, and I'm gonna try to figure out where the middle between this hole here and this area is. And I can see here that if I go a little past 1 centimeter, like somewhere here, I'll be good on that side. And then I do the same thing here. A little bit past 1 centimeter is somewhere around here. I'm eyeballing it because I don't necessarily need it to be any closer. And you could definitely do this on a scrap piece of wood and make a template. And then you can do it again. But I'm going to show you how to do this without a template, because maybe some of you don't have the luxury of a template. And now I can line this up, because I know this is square. I can line this up with the border here, and I can move those lines across the drawing, like so. And now I know that I have enough wood here for the screw to go into and not chip out. And so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add a lip, because obviously we can't cut to this edge here. This pen is about 1 mil, and it's on the outside of the plate. So if we cut on this line and made a cavity here, the entire plate would just fall in. So we need to maybe make it about 3 mils. So I'm adding a little mark there, and I'm adding a little mark there. And now I can connect these lines. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so what I've done is that I've measured out a lip around, and I've rounded it over a little bit. I've also measured out a point for me to drill. And the way I did that is I took the radius of the drill bit that I'm gonna use to find the center of it. And so now I can just take an awl and I can make a mark to help guide. And I'm just gonna drill a bunch of holes here to make a bunch of relief cuts. And then I'm gonna use my router to clean it up. And the way I do when I wanna make a cavity like this, I already have a video on freestyle routing. So if you wanna see more about that, you can watch that video. But essentially, I'm gonna go down maybe 5 mils or 6 mils, something like that. Somewhere around there, maybe 7, but not much more than that. 5 to 7 millimeters down into the body, and just make a super tiny little cavity. And I'm gonna spend some extra time making sure that I'm really happy with that cavity, and that I'm really following these lines that I've made for myself, and that I'm happy with it. And then I'm gonna use that cavity as basically like a ride-along, like a built-in template. Here is a bit. It's the kind that I'm gonna use in doing what I'm doing. And basically this part here is gonna plunge into the body. So if this is the edge of the wood, basically it's gonna get pushed into it like this, and then it's gonna spin and it's gonna cut it away. And I'm gonna make a cavity that is big enough for this little wheel that is on here, that is the bearing. And these cutters work that way, that this bearing will run along an edge and everything underneath will be cut away. That's how guitar templates work. And so by cutting out this cavity, enough so that this bearing can ride on the inside, I will clean it all up and make a hole that looks perfect. I've put a bunch of masking tape on the body, which I hope you can see, and it's to protect the body so that it doesn't get damaged or dinged or anything like that, because let's remember that we're pretending like this is an actual expensive, nice guitar and not a kit guitar that I've painted. I would obviously be even more careful if this was a actual expensive guitar, but I'm trying to show you the steps I would take. I'm gonna go and do a bunch of drilling for these holes, and then I'm gonna clean it up. And I'll be back real soon, because I feel like I've filmed a bunch of drilling and routing, and I don't think you need to see that now, because it's not that exciting to see, as long as you know what it is I'm gonna do. And also just remember, do all these things slowly, and take your time, and try not to stress out about it too much. And also just measure how far you go. You should leave about maybe 8 millimeters in the bottom. Okay, so here's the cavity now. I made it a little bit deeper than before because at some point I'm gonna upgrade to a bigger switch and bigger pots and, you know, things like that. And so I'm gonna need a little bit extra depth. But that's, you know, yeah. Now we can just remove the tape and go on to the next step. There's a little bit of residue here, so I'm gonna have to do a little bit of cleanup. But it's just, you know, a little bit of lukewarm water and maybe some soap or something. I don't know. Okay, so here's the cavity, and I could just locate the marks that I made, and I could hold it up to the place. And if I look around, there are no gaps. Okay, so now we're gonna drill a hole on the side here where the output jack is gonna be. And first, I'm just gonna try to decide where I want the hole. And so I'm just gonna hold this up here, and I'm gonna do a mark. I like to try to put everything in some sort of line so that, like, oh, it goes through. So I will have the switch, the two knobs, and the output jack all in somewhat of a close direction. But I feel like this is a little bit more than I want, so I'm going to move it over a little bit like this. And I have masking tape on the underside, and I'm just going to make a mark like this. And then I'm just measuring the thickness and dividing it by half, and I'm making a mark with my pen, and I'm double checking it, so in between those two, and then I'll take an awl and I'll make a mark like that. Now I know where to drill. I'm going to start out by drilling a tiny little pilot hole, so I'll center this up and I'll look down the body. It's a little bit difficult for you guys, but I'm trying to make a straight line, and I start drilling. And it's good to look down this direction too, because you don't want to go in a weird angle. Something like that. And now we can just enlarge this hole until it's the right size. Okay, I'm gonna try to show you here now. I drilled a hole into the cavity like this. That's for the wires. Then I enlarged the hole. And when I enlarge the hole, I'm going with the flatness of the body, because the jack is gonna sit right out. It's not going in any weird angle because it's sitting on a flat piece of metal. So then I go in straight like this. And so, I don't know if you can see that in the hole, I basically have like two cavities. I have that tiny mark you see there, and then I have the hole there that goes to this hole. So I hope that makes sense. Leave a comment if it doesn't, because I understand if this can be confusing. One goes like this, that's for the actual plug-in, and one hole goes like this, and it's for the wires to the plug. Okay, so the next step is that the old cavity is obviously gone. We all know that. This here I could have removed, you know, but I didn't, because
we're gonna make a pick guard in the next video. But the issue we're facing right now is that the cables are supposed to be pulled here to a cavity here that doesn't exist. And so we need to drill a new hole. And I'm gonna go this way with a very long drill bit, like this one, or actually with this one. And then I'm gonna do the same thing and drill a hole here so that I can pull the bridge pickups wires through here and the neck pickup wires through here and then there. And then I'm gonna drill a tiny hole in the side right here for the bridge connection. If you touch your guitar, chrome parts, and a little bit of hum goes away, and sometimes it can even be sounding a little bit like a pop, you most likely have a ground issue. Whenever I've repaired a guitar for someone and that has been the case, that they have those pops, it's always been a ground connection, or at least like 99% of the time it's been the ground connection. So we're gonna do that. But before I start, I just want to say that if you're doing this sort of mod on a guitar that has a glued-in neck, you can't drill from this direction, like this, because the neck is in the way. But what you can do is you can take off the strap button and you can drill from that end to here and then there. Then you can take a dowel that has the same thickness and that is this long, and you can just plug that entire hole up. And especially if you buy a dowel of hardwood, which most dowels are, you can plug that up with some wood glue on and no one will ever notice it. And if you take a size of drill bit that is the same thickness as your strap button, even though I think you should cover it up with paint and stuff like that, it will disappear because the strap button is covering it. And so you could definitely do that. I'm obviously not going to bother doing it that way because it's kind of silly. I'm going to move the body over like this, and I'm going to plug this in to my drill, and I'm just going to go like this. And I just drill through this tiny little piece here, and then drill through this piece here. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put this on the body like this and drill. And I might actually put something on here to not scratch the wood, like a piece of metal or something. I have these U-bracket pieces of metal that I usually will use. They are just a tube that I've cut on the length to make them into U, and it's perfect. You can put it in there, you can start the drill, and the drill will lie on the piece of metal and not scrape the wood. So let's zoom in a little bit and just drill these two holes to begin with. Something like that. Hole goes in there, comes out there, goes in there, and comes out here. So now I'm just going to move the body over like this so that the cavity is on the opposite side of me. And I'm just going to line my drill up like this, move it over here, and drill out the hole. Super simple and easy. So we've drilled a hole here and a hole here, and now we need to drill a hole here. And if you look really closely, which I don't know if you'll be able to see, right here there is actually an old hole, and it's the ground wire that will be connected to the bridge plate, and you need to have this. Different kinds of guitar have these holes in different locations, and you can drill directly to the cavity over here if you wanna. But you could also, if a pickup cavity is close, you can try to drill as close to that. Now, depending on what kind of bridge you have, there are different things. If you have something like a Stratocaster, you will have a claw on the backside, and you will have a ground connection to that claw. If you have a Les Paul, you will have ferrules that have been plugged into the body, and you will drill a tiny little cavity there from that inside of that hole. And on a Telecaster like this, you'll drill a tiny little hole like this, just connect like this. So I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Like so, because it was filled with paint from when I painted it, and now I can just push a wire through there and get a connection. And I can tug it in and put it in the
along the inside edge. And it will all be good and grounded and connected. So here's the body, the neck is attached, and we're gonna start off working on it. I have the old pickguard here, and as you can see, fits nicely except for up here. And we're gonna keep certain elements of this, and we're gonna have some other things going around and get some new inspiration. This is just basically inspiration and nothing more. If you don't like something that I show you, you don't need to do things exactly like I do. I'm gonna do something that I think looks nice and that I think will fit, and you can do things however you want. And you can do something super simple, like just covering up this part here, or just, you know, a tiny little just double pickguard like this that goes out here and is just mirrored like this, with not the hole up here maybe. But otherwise perfectly just a mirror. You could actually even buy 2 pickguards and cut them in half and put them together and just have a seam in the middle. Could be really cool. You could even make that seam nicer by doing an inlay as well. I'm not gonna do that, at least not in this video. If you think that's a cool idea, maybe I'll, you know, do it in another video or something. But you could definitely do something like that. Make it simple for yourself, you know. Anyway, so the first thing we're gonna do is we are gonna trace out this pickguard on the piece of wood we have. So here's the piece of wood, and here I have my tracing knives. I have a video where I tell you about them in more detail. It's a guitar builder's life hack video. So if you're interested in, you can watch them. But basically all there are knives that only have one edge. So they're flat on one side and they have a bevel here. And I have one for cutting with my left hand, and I have one for cutting with my right hand. And it's just a matter of how the blade moves, because the flat side is towards what you're tracing. So we're gonna start off by putting our pickguard down, and I'm gonna hold it in place, and I'm gonna take a knife, and I'm gonna take the knife that I need to trace, and I'm just gonna cut into the wood. And by cutting with a knife that has only bevel on one side, I will get a close connection that is perfect and mirrored. I don't have to think about things like the thickness of the pen I'm using and what that do to the transfer. I just have to think about the actual shape. And here, when I hold the knife here, all of a sudden the blade is on the wrong side, because I'm flipping it around. And so I have to just come back like this. And here, when I'm going here, you can see the edge is on the wrong side again. So I have to move back. And so it's really good to have these knives, and then here I have to move it again, because to whatever it is you're tracing, the back needs to be. So now we can move this away, and I don't know if you can see the lines in the material, but I have I've made a line here that matches this, and I've made a line here that matches this. And now I'm just going to do it again, but I'm going to flip pickguard over, and I'm going to match it up to what I've already made. And now I can just keep tracing, and I'll trace this horn out here. And the reason why I want to do this first is because I want to make this neck pocket here, and I want to make this bridge pocket here, so that I can freestyle the rest of the pickguard. So I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to cut this out real quick, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back here with the pickguard now, and I've cut a sleeve in like this for where the bridge go. And it's just a copy of the pickguard, so they match up pretty well. I've also cut out the beginning of the horns and the neck pocket. And it's just because these measurements right here are the ones that I feel are relevant to the design of the guitar. This is where things need to match up. How things move in this direction is what we're going to talk about now and what we're going to work on. It's going to be a little bit hard for you to see when I've drawn in lines, but hopefully you'll get somewhat
of an idea of what I'm doing. And I'm going to show you how I did all the cutting out of this when I do the other parts. It's just that you don't need to see all of it. The only thing you need to know is I took extra care and extra long time cutting out these particular shapes, just because that's where things are going to have to be perfect in their matching up with the body. So let's put this on the body and see what happens. Also, you can see some white dots in the pickguard here. I had to put in some acrylic fillers to make the wood a little bit stronger, because this is a very thin piece of wood. You're not going to have to do that if you have really hard wood or if you're using plastic or metal or anything like that, but this is very soft and brittle wood. So here is the body, and hopefully you can see, you're going to get better picture later on, so you can see like the upper horn here, for example, where I've spent most of my time. It fits really nicely there, and the neck pocket looks really nice. I'm going to put the bridge on just so I can do some measurements and see how things look. And basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find a way to make the shapes. For example, I don't feel like I need pickguard right here. A very fine point pen, and I'm just going to draw out. And I like to draw very softly so that I can easily erase it. I'm going to try to find a way to move this line here in a bit. So I can move this in a bit, and then maybe move it in, break the angle a little bit, move it back again, and again, and again. Somewhere around here, a little round off screw, and an organic flowing shape. And I know I did that really quickly, and some of you might be like, I don't understand what you did, but I'm basically trying to see movements in the guitar. This horn has a line that goes down like this, and I'm trying to soften it up, not just making a completely straight, like dead line, because everything is very smooth and organic and every line here flows, so I'm trying to make this float a little bit. If I were going to make the pickguard go to the back of here, I might have actually gone something like this, you know, just to try to prove my point or whatever. So by thinning it out up here and just breaking that a little bit so that it feels almost like the lines are V'ing out from each other like this, I can create a sense of movement or something. And I can use my triangle here. I don't know why I have forgotten all words. To make a mark here so that I can be like, okay, parallel to there is that. So I can move on making something else. I'm just gonna finalize this line a little bit, and then we'll move on to drawing the end down here. So I'll be back in 5 seconds when I've looked at this for a couple of minutes and then decided how I want things. Okay, so I'm back. Here is the guitar with the pickguard on, and this is the way it looks right now. I've redefined and shapen this side here, and I've rounded it over and made somewhat of a natural cut. I've also made a cut here. I had this idea that I would be inspired by a Telecaster thin line and also a little bit of a Stratocaster, and tried to find a way of make this look older than it actually is, just because we're supposed to be making a pickguard for a 1963 Telecaster, and so maybe working from those specs we can get somewhere. We have to keep the theme of this line going, so I can hold this up to this and I can clamp it into place with my hand like this, and I can see that here would be the line to go through. Now I can start working on how I would want this pickguard to look. And I'm going to take it off the body and hold it like this for a bit. And basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to make this look a bit like a Telecaster thin line pickguard down here, and see if I can match things up a little bit. So just draw in a couple of lines. something like that, maybe. I don't really know. Feels a little bit too much that way. But then again, we have to think about where we put things. So I think I'm going to move this back a little bit. Maybe have this line go down a little bit more so it feels a little bit more. Try to look at the pick guard, hold it up to yourself. This is what it looks like right now. And just try to visualize the flow of things and how they look and how they move. Like for example, this line here doesn't work too well with this line here now. So maybe I'll have to like, no. But also this line here goes well together there. This is how I work when I design a guitar. I try to see lines, I try to see where one curve goes into another and find symmetry, even if it's not symmetrical. And it might seem strange and weird. I really want things to look like they're where they're supposed to be. So I try to figure out, and I think I have to, if I'm going to keep this going like this, I feel like here we have a little bit of an issue. Maybe I should go up. I don't know. I think this line here needs to be pushed up a little bit. Okay, so after redrawing some lines and measuring some and looking at the pickguard and then looking at it on the guitar and going back and forth for a while to make sure I'm perfectly happy, this is what I'm gonna cut out now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my special blades that I showed you in one of my Guitar Builder's life hack. And the reason why is because they're super fine-toothed, and so I will be able to cut some of this out without any wood splinters. I'm gonna cut about maybe 2 millimeters away from the lines I've drawn, and the reason why is because this is very thin and it will very easily break. And so I'm gonna do my very best to cut far away. And then we're gonna move on to the next step and I'm gonna film some more. So first off, we're gonna plug it into this. I'm gonna put on ear protection and just cut away a little bit of wood. And when I move the blade this way, the fibers of the wood are going that way, and so it won't chip out. So I can get a little bit closer to the line, but if I were to cut this way, I would have to be extra careful not to have any chip outs, and I would most likely take a knife and carve in a line for chip outs to break at. Let's get this piece out now. Okay, so here's the pickguard, now a rough cutout. We're gonna clean up these lines and I'm gonna do it on my orbital sander. I'm gonna film that to show you just a little bit of how I do it. And then we're gonna move on to the next step. But just so you know, there are other tools you can use. For example, you can use files and sandpaper and you can slowly move up to the lines that you're gonna cut out. You don't need to have every tool that I have just to be able to build guitars. Some tools are unnecessary, but they make things go very fast. And so you can, you know, get more done, basically. And an orbital sander is one of those things. It makes some of the steps in building guitars a little bit easier. And so if you're planning on making more than one guitar, I would recommend getting one. They're also a lot of fun to work with. So let's just move over to the orbital sander and see what happens. Okay, so now I have to decide where I want to have the holes. I was actually about to forget it, but I think I'm just going to use this as a template, and I'm going to put this somewhere around there maybe, and then I'm just going to take a pen and mark out where I want these. Then, because this is a little bit off, I'm gonna move it around a little bit. So I'm just gonna push this up a little bit and to the side, something like that, and mark it out. And I think that's gonna look perfectly fine. I'll have my tone and my volume, and I'll have my three-way switch. And I don't really have to think that much about it, because I know that these two, the switch and the first tone pot, they are the distance on the plate. I don't really have to think so much more about it than that. The next part is the pickup, and I don't know what pickup I'm gonna end up with, to be perfectly honest. I might actually end up with a P90 or a humbucker. I have a green Telecaster that is inspired by Johnny Marr. Maybe you've seen the videos. It has a humbucker, and I kind of like that. So maybe this guitar will end up with a P90. I don't actually know. I might also just add another pickup back here. We'll see. Nothing is set in stone yet. So now I'm just going to cut these out. It's going to be fairly easy. I'm going to drill a tiny hole there and a tiny hole there. And I'm going to take a razor blade and I'm just going to cut and cut and cut and cut. Just go like this until I'm through. These two holes and these two holes I'm just going to drill out with drill bits, and the same thing here. I'm just going to drill the tiny little holes out, and then I'm going to drill two bigger holes here and just cut with a razor blade back and forth until I'm done. And then we'll paint this. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so here's the pick guard. I've put it on some paper because I don't want to mess up my working area. And here I have a wood stain that I'm going to use. I'm going with black because the body is white. That's basically all there is to it. And I'm just going to flood it and let it soak in. And as you can see, it's very faint. And so we are going to have to put on a lot of layers to get the nice black pickguard that I want. And we're just going to leave this to dry now. And I'll be back real soon with a nicely covered pickguard. Okay, so here's the pickguard right now. What I did was I just painted it with the black stain a couple of times until I got this nice charcoal black finish that I was going for. I could have had lesser and made it more grayish, but I like the idea of the guitar being really white and the pickguard being really black to create a really nice contrast. I then, after it dried, put on a layer of clear coat. I put on a pretty thick layer because I knew it would sink into the wood a lot. And so here we have it right now. And in the spots where it's more shiny is where the lacquer hasn't gone in as deep. But I'm pretty pleased with the way it looks. If we flip it over, it looks like this, and it's not terribly good looking, but it doesn't really matter because no one is going to see this side. Here I have shielding tape, and we're going to put a little bit of that on the back of this, just because we want to stop some of the interfering from playing the guitar. I'm just going to cut a piece like this, and I'm going to first put one piece here. And so we take off this backing, revealing the adhesive, and then we can just stick it down. Then we take something like, for example, a hammer, which has a nice flat surface, and we just move it across
to make sure we get a really nice bond. And here it hangs over the edge a little bit, so we take a razor blade and we cut a little bit on the inside, like so. And then we can peel this back, and now it won't be seen from the other side. And we have to do the same thing, cutting away the tape on the pickup cavity, just so that the pickup can go through. We're going to put a piece here as well, and I'm just holding it up, seeing where is a good place to cut it. And I fold it, I have a mark there. I'm going to take my razor blade and I'm just going to cut it away. And I'm removing the back again, just like I did on the other piece, and I'm sticking it down somewhere like this. And then I'm cutting away so that this tiny piece here, where it sticks out, can be removed so that you don't see anything on the other side. And now I'm gonna put this pickguard on the guitar and we'll see what it all looks like when it's all neat and finished. I'm gonna go maybe 5 mil on the inside and just drill a couple of holes so that screws can hold this pickguard in place. And we'll take a look at the guitar. So wait a couple of seconds and you'll see hopefully something cool. So here's the guitar right now. This is the way it looks, the body at least. The headstock looks the same as always. And I'm fairly happy with the way it looks. To be honest, it turned out, in my opinion, better than expected. I really like the sort of rustic look, if you will, of the pickguard, together with the relict guitar body. Now, I understand that some of you are going to be like, why did you relic the body? We don't like relic guitars, it's ugly with relic guitars. And the thing is, first of all, if you like relic guitars, you don't have to apologize for liking relic guitars. You're allowed to like whatever you like. Second of all, this was supposed to be Mike Bloomfield's guitar, and if you've seen that guitar, you know that it's relict. And if it's relict by hand or by playing, you know, it doesn't really matter. I went into this as if I was going to actually make a new pickguard for him. And so I was trying to make something that seemed like it would match. It looks kind of weird when you have a guitar that is old looking, but all the hardware looks brand new. I know the hardware looks brand new on this guitar, but that's because I'm gonna switch all these parts out at some point, and so I don't really feel like wasting the time on making them look old when I'm not gonna keep them anyway. And this is obviously a kit guitar and not an old guitar. I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. The tuners on this guitar right now are not that great, so if the guitar is a little bit out of tune, it's because a couple of chords into playing and you need to retune it. I can't really do anything about that except changing the tuners out, so I'm gonna have to do that later on. If you have any cool ideas for tuners I could use, let me know. The next thing is the bridge. If I wanted to make this look even more like a left-handed guitar and not a right-handed guitar made into a left-handed guitar, I would switch this out, and I'm gonna switch this out. I'm gonna switch this out to a bridge that is angled the other way around, basically this way. But there are a couple of things about that you need to think about, and the first thing is when you switch things out, usually that will make the guitar behave differently. So if you have a guitar you really love, it might not be a good idea to switch the bridge out, because you might actually, you know, change the way it feels and sounds. The same thing with a nut. If you like the nut that is in, even though you know that, you know, it's plastic or something, changing it out for bone might not be a good idea. If you like what's on the guitar and you feel like it's magic, then beware of changing things, because they might actually not improve the guitar. They might also make the guitar better, you know, but be careful. I don't feel like changing this bridge here could damage this guitar in any way. It could only improve it. That's because I really dislike this bridge. As I've said in my review of this kit, I am very sure I could bend this by just my hands. So yes, I'm gonna change the bridge out. I'm gonna change all the hardware and the electronics and all of that out at some point, but it's not relevant to this build. If you want to follow up on how I would do those things and what I did later down the line, leave a comment below letting me know that you're interested, because obviously I don't need a follow-up video to my own guitars. I own them. But if you're interested in seeing something like that, let me know. I was also gonna do a carve, armrest carve, and a belly carve on the back side. I have a very simple and easy way to add those to a guitar that are like quick and easy things you can do. But I actually like this guitar. I've been playing it for a couple of hours now, and I actually like it, so I don't want to do it to this guitar. So I'm thinking that if you are interested in seeing how to do that quick and easy, I'll do a separate video for that on a different guitar or on a scrap piece of wood. But anyway, I'm gonna plug this into my little practice amp here. It's one of those cheap Fender amps that you get when you start out, and it's just because I feel like this is so much a starter guitar. I haven't changed anything on this guitar for better parts or anything like that. The only thing I've really added that you couldn't get in the kit was an extra screw for the pickguard, because I made a new pickguard. Obviously the pickguard is also a new part. But anyway, I'm going to plug it into this and play it through this, so you have sort of a idea of what it sounds like if you're interested, and if you also haven't seen the review where I already played it. But nothing should have really changed, except I'd used another amp. So yes, let's plug it into the amp. First I'm going to tune it, because it's just me filming this part here. It's already out of tune. And you'll get to hear what it sounds like and get a little bit more close-ups. And hopefully you like the guitar, and hopefully you like the video series. Let me know in the comments below what you think and feel about it all. And if you wouldn't mind sharing this with other people that might be interested, I would be very happy if you did. I'm very bad at exposing myself to the networks, so if you help me out, I appreciate it. Anyway, until next time, stay awesome and cool, and go and make a wooden custom pickguard for one of your guitars, because I feel like it's a win. So quickly, story time. I was at my local secondhand store, and I was just walking around there trying to find weird stuff. because, you know, you can find old radios and things like that. Trying to find something that I could use for my next project or to get inspired to come up with something crazy and weird for the channel. And out of nowhere, I found something really funny and interesting that I didn't think I would find. And that was, I found a new neck. But not only a new neck. This is a left-handed neck. But it's not only a left-handed neck. It's a Harley Benton neck. It's super funny. It's almost like they were like, oh, that guy who made that video, we need to have a neck for him. So I found this to be actually really funny because it seems like fate or something. It's crazy. I got all the tuners, and all that we basically need to do is just take the guitar and pop the strings. Like that. And now we can put on the new neck. Okay, so the neck is out, and now we just need to reshape this a tiny bit so the new neck can fit in there. I only have to remove a very tiny amount, so I'm just using a little sander in my drill to just remove maybe something like 1/2 a mil or 1/3 of a mil all around. It's super tiny amount I need to remove. And now we can just take the new neck, and because it fits, it goes in to its place, like so. Now we have the neck in its place where it's supposed to be, and we can take an awl, press it in here, and make a mark in the neck for every screw. We need to plug up this hole and this hole because they are off by almost 1 millimeter. And so I'm just going to take wooden dowels, some wood glue, and push it into them. Okay, time for some Uncanny Valley cutting. So I've put some masking tape down, and that's just because I hope that I will be able to cut these flush without marring up the back of the neck. And something like that. Okay, so now I've put the neck back in place, and I can just go back with my awls, and I can mark out the new placement. Take the neck off. You can see where I need to drill the holes. I'm using my pillar drill to drill the holes because I know it will turn out straight and nice. But I'm also using the pillar drill because it has a stop on the side, so I can measure out how far I want to go. I can clamp down the stop and make sure I don't accidentally drill through the neck. And then I can just put the neck back into its place and screw in the screws where they belong. And everything should line up correctly, unless you've totally put in the neck in a weird way. But I believe in you, so I don't think that would happen. Well, here's the guitar now, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. The neck doesn't really fit the body aesthetically, but it does look more like a left-handed guitar, and I think that's cool. Let me know in the comments below what do you think? We are gonna reshape this neck because I've been playing the guitar a little bit, and I've been thinking about it and feeling it, and I've been comparing it to some of my other guitars, and I've realized that I want this neck to be a little bit slimmer. It has a very round shape, and it's actually pretty thick. It's about 22 millimeters at the 2nd fret and 24 at the 12th. And so taking off just a little bit will help this guitar become a much nicer guitar, I think. I don't want this to be a Telecaster. I feel like a classical Telecaster should have a really thick neck and you should have to like wrap your hand around it almost like a baseball bat. I just don't really think that this is a Telecaster any longer. If you disagree, please write a comment below telling me why you disagree, because I don't feel like it's very much Telecaster anymore, and with some of the other things that I have planned for later videos, it's gonna turn even less Telecaster, but we'll talk about that when we get to it because it's not really a part of this video. But anyway, that's what we're gonna do in this video. And first, I'm just gonna explain a little bit about reshaping necks because there are a couple of things that we just need to talk about, because I don't want any of you guys to destroy your guitar's neck if you want to reshape it. So let's jump into it. So the first thing that you actually have to think about is the guitar neck actually too thick
for you, or is it just the shape? I would say that in 90% of the cases, the neck is actually not that thick. It might be kind of hard thing to explain, but it's the shape of the neck. Most people who think that the guitar neck is too thick actually just want something that is flatter in the back. If you look at this neck, and it's going to be kind of hard for me to show you because it's hard to show the roundness of it, but it's very round, and if you just flatten out the middle part of the neck going down here like this, you will take off some of the wood from the neck, but you don't have to take off that much. And the thing is, you have a truss rod inside of it, and if you don't know what a truss rod is, it's a metal steel bar basically that goes through the neck, and by screwing it and bending it, you adjust the relief in the neck. And if you take off too much, there are two things that can happen. And the first one is that you remove so much wood that when you adjust the truss rod, it will just break the wood and pop out basically through the back. And that's not something you really want to happen, because there is really no turning back from that. You're gonna have to replace the neck if that happens. And the second thing is that you could actually route or rasp, or however you're gonna go about removing the wood. You could remove too much wood and just go straight into the truss rod, and that is basically the same thing as the truss rod popping out through the back. And if you look at like reshaped neck horror pictures on like Google Images or something like that, you will find a bunch of people who have just gone through the neck. Now, what you should do is you should measure, and I'm gonna see if I can show you this. You should measure how far down the truss rod goes. You can just measure in this hole with a calips and up to where the fretboard starts. Basically, if you use your calips like this, you poke it down like that into the hole like this, and then you can just adjust it to see how far down the truss rod is. And then you will know that, okay, this neck is maybe, let's say, 22 centimeters thick, but say 10 millimeters go away by having a truss rod. So the thickness on the back is only 12 millimeters. Now, how much of that can you remove? It sort of depends on what wood it is, and it also depends on the quality of the wood, because not all maple is equal. But I would say that if you have a maple neck and you leave about 5 millimeters on the back, maybe 6 millimeters to be safe at the thickest point I'm talking about now from the truss rod, not the entire neck, just the extra, you are getting pretty close to where I would say that you need to stop. And I would probably leave more than that. So, for example, this neck is 22 millimeters thick, all in all, and so removing 2 millimeters and leaving a 20 millimeters, or really removing 3 millimeters, which is what I'm gonna do, that's safe. And I would say no guitar neck of any like famous brands or any big brands are really much thinner than that. Like the Wizard neck on an Ibanez is not, I think they are somewhere around 18.5 if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I played one of them, but they're basically somewhere around that. And 18 mils, it's not that much different than 20, and I think it's like 18.5. So if you remove 1 millimeter of your neck and just blend out, because obviously if you remove right here you will have a new edge to reshape, but if you reshape it and just remove 1 mil, you're gonna see a big difference. And also, if you remove 1 mil of the neck and everything works out great and you just feel like, I need to remove a little bit more, you can just sand the guitar neck a little bit more, remove 1/2 mil or 1/3 of a mil or something like that, a super tiny amount, and go a very safe route. And that's better. Just keep in mind that you need to look up what kind of truss rod you have in your guitar neck. Because some necks have thin truss rods and they're made by some hard wood that will keep the strength more easily, and some are made of some softer woods and they have bigger truss rods. So what I'm saying here, you have to think about the thickness of the neck and the thickness of the truss rod and how much wood you have between the truss rod and the actual back of the neck. And I just realized that I did a mistake in telling you these things, because when I said the thickness of the neck is 22, that's with the fretboard, but you have to remove the fretboard from your calculation. You have to also measure the fretboard, which in my case is almost 3 mils, which means that the neck is 19 mils thick, which means that I have 9 millimeters between the back of the truss rod and the outer side of the neck at its thickest point, which means that's not a lot of wiggle room for any wood to be removed, and so we have to be really careful. And I think that now that I remeasured this, I'm probably not going to remove 3 mils. I'm probably just going to remove 2 mils just to keep it on the safe side. Might remove a little bit less, like 1.5. I don't really know. You have to keep in mind also that you have sanding to do, and sanding can take off more than what
you are expecting it to do. I'm just quickly going to pop this neck off. There are 4 bolts in the back here, and they're really easy to remove. It's just a screwdriver. Pull them out, and so see you in a bit. Okay, so this is my guitar neck sled, I suppose is what you could call it, or something of that fashion. And it's super simple and easy. And if you don't have one of these, you should probably make one. And all it is a flat board with 2 boards on the side, and they are planed perfectly, straight and even, and they're equal heights and everything. You know, kind of things that we all have learned to love. And I use this for so many things. And now what I'm going to use it for is basically as a sled for my router. And so I'm just going to put my router on top of here, and it's basically just going to sit like this and go back and forth like this. I'm basically doing something a little bit different now, which is that I'm going to explain what I'm doing, and I'm going to show everything with my hands, and then I'm just going to go and route it. Because usually when I route stuff, you get to see me route stuff, but it's not really anything to see, and you don't really get any understanding of what I'm doing maybe through just watching me do that. So instead, I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing, and the next time you see me, it will be already routed, basically. I hope that makes sense. I hope that you're okay with it, and that you'll write comments below telling me which you prefer. If you just want to see me do the routing, or me explaining and showing you with things, you know, which is better, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, if this is the router, we pretend, it's basically just going to go across like this, and I'm going to put the blade of the router, which is basically something like this, but it's going to be a flat one, down to the wood like this, and then I'm going to put my stop down to a mill or something like that, so that it can't go any further down. And then I'm just going to plunge it down, and I'm going to go back and forth like this, and I'm going to remove a mill on the back. And I'm going to stay a bit away from the round over part, so I'll stop somewhere around here maybe, and somewhere around here, which you can't see what I just did, but I did a little mark down there. And it's just because when it comes to the round over, it's better to do that by hand and make sure it's reshapen correctly and looks nice, instead of having a gouge mark. And so if we stay fairly far away from the round over, which is up here, and so then we have a lot of space to work with the blending in of the new depth of the neck and the old neck pocket here, because we don't want to change anything of this area here, because that's where it clamps down to the body. And if we change anything here, we are gonna end up with things being messy when it comes to putting the neck back on and making everything straight. So we're gonna stop around here. You don't have to measure out where to stop, just give yourself some excess to do some of the blending. It could be just the thickness of your thumb or something. I have a little bit more to say on the safe side, and I'm doing the same thing up here. I'm basically just giving myself a little bit of wiggle room. So I hope that makes sense. The router is gonna just sit on top and go back and forth like this, and remove my 2 mils or 1.5 mil or something like that. I'm just gonna come back off that, and I'll talk to you again. Okay, so I've routed out the neck a little bit, and you can see what it looks like now, and it looks super rough, but it feels a little bit nicer actually. I feel like maybe I should have taken off a little bit more. I feel like I stayed on the safe side, which is, you know, not really how I like to roll. I kind of want to go crazy and just, you know, regret what I've done. But anyway, I think this is going to be nice. Now, some of you are going to say, well, isn't this changing the shape of the neck? And yes, that's the point. The point is to make this have a more flat back than it used to have. So when we go to reshape this, we're going to remove a little bit in the middle here, because we're going to sand it and we're going to blend, but we're basically not going to do that much. Here on the sides, you can see it's a very rough edge. You don't want that, but we can really quickly get that to be somewhat nicer. So now I'm just taking a regular razor blade, and we're not gonna really go that way, but you can do that if you wanna do that, and we're just blending it out. And you can see quickly now, if you compare the two sides, how fast I rounded that over and smoothed it into the rest of the neck. And so we're just gonna go over the entire neck and do that. And I think I'm gonna use a rasp. I haven't really decided yet what I'm gonna use, but you could use a rasp, you could use a file, you could use sandpaper, you could even use a sanding machine and just go over it like this and sand it over. You could definitely go with a razor blade like this, and since I have the razor blade out, I might start with it and just go over the edge like this and just blend out that harsh router edge. And first we're just going to focus on the middle, and we'll come back to this later, because first we just want to make sure we have a sort of ballpark
reshape, you know, something that is like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. If you feel like, oh no, I need to remove a little bit more, but it's less than like a mil or half a mil, it's not much at all, just sand it. Just sand that final little extra you want to remove, and don't go back into the router if it's so little. I mean, if it's more than a mil that you need to remove, fine, go back to the router. But if it's just, I just wish it was a tiny bit thinner, it's okay to go by hand. And I'm just doing one side right now real quickly while talking to you, because I kind of want to show you how, first of all, how quickly it goes to do this if you do it the way I do it. And you don't need to use router to do it. It's just that I feel like it's a very easy way to remove a lot of wood quickly and getting it even and straight across the entire neck, and also getting it down to the right thickness and stuff like that. And I actually measured a bunch of my guitar necks when I was preparing to do this video, and I just noticed that, like, except for one of my guitars, they were all in the ballpark of about 1 or 2 mils thinner than this one. So I really didn't need to remove more. And the reason why I was on the cusp of removing 3 mil instead was simply because I have a guitar neck that has a 19 mil thickness, and it's that neck I made as a copy of a Ibanez guitar that I used to have. It was an old gem, and I just really liked that neck. So if I roll this neck here, you can see that it's fairly quickly actually become very round over. Obviously this side still looks the way it used to, but this side has some of the round over. So I'm just going to go over the entire neck and just actually use this razor blade and scrape away and take away. And I'm not going to take away that much in the middle at all. It has to get a little bit of a cleanup because I do have some burn mark here. Okay, so the neck has been reshapen and I'm pretty happy with it. It feels nice in the hand. It obviously needs a sanding, but that's not what we're gonna do right now. I feel like it's a big difference actually. I can wrap my hand around it a lot more. This is a tool. It looks most like a knife. It's a chisel, but it's an angle chisel with an edge on both sides. And I don't think they are actually made anymore. I don't really know what this is. It's some sort of tool, obviously, but I don't actually... just know it's a vintage tool, and it's very good for the shaping of the like horn parts or whatever you want to call them on a guitar. And so that's what I'm going to use to just blend into this routing here. And I'm going to sand and I'm going to reshape it a little bit more then. But to do the bulk, I use this. You can use a regular like wood carving knife. I've done that too. Works almost as good. But if you have any vintage tool shops around, go and take a look and see if you can find something that looks like a chisel, but it's angled and it has the edge on both sides. So it's basically like the tip of a knife, basically. You could also just take a chisel and ground it like this. But hopefully you can see that I'm very easily just taking away the bulk of this and reshaping it and blending, something like that. I don't have to go super overboard because we are going to sand the entire neck and we're going to sand up here as well. And now I just have to do the same thing I just did down here, carve away and blend out these parts. Okay, so here's the neck right now. And from the front, you can't really see that I've done anything. And on the back, I don't know if you can see it. It's a lot flatter in the back. It's about the same thickness all around now. Quickly, I just want to say something that I totally forgot and that I need to say. And that is you need to straighten the neck out. Just make the neck as straight as you possibly can. And then put it into the jig and plane it down. The neck is pretty much done now. I am fairly comfortable neck. I might finalize it a little bit more. I don't really know. But I'm pretty happy. I think this is going to be a great change. It feels really different, and that's the thing. You can change the feel of the neck so much by just taking off a tiny bit in the back and rounding it over. So if you have a neck and you think it's crazy thick, you want to remove half of the meat on the back, just try to remove a mil and round it over and change the shape from being a very round one to a more flat one, and see what that does for you. This is going to be great. And if I measure this now, which I think we should do, we've gone down to 20 mil here, which is 2 mils less, and we've gone down to 22 at the 12th, which is 2 mils
lesser there as well. So all in all, I've removed 2 mils. At this point, I would suggest you sand the back of the neck up to 400 grit, so you take all the steps in between, because that's where it starts to get really nice. And then you dampen it with a damp piece of cloth or something, and that will raise the grain, and then you sand it back with 400 grit again, and then you can put some sort of finish over it, like gunstock, true oil finish, something like that. You can use a tongue oil or something else. If you want to lacquer the guitar neck, you can do that. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to it. There isn't really that big of a thing. You just have to be really careful and think about small details like measuring out where your truss rod is. You can also look up, if you have a neck and you know what manufacturer it is, what kind of truss rod they use. We're going to take the neck that I have right here, and we are going to do a old guitar lacquer on it. And the thing is that the reason why I ask this is because when it comes to lacquer with something like a spray gun or a spray can, you just, spray it evenly. And I've already made a video on spray painting bodies that you can look at. It's sort of a basic thing of how I do it, and it goes through the whole process in a lot more detail than I'm gonna do in this, because in this we're not gonna actually focus so much on that. This is more about how to make it look like an old paint. So that's why it might have been a little bit confusing in the post and be like, well, why is he going to make an entire video about painting a neck? It's not about painting a neck, it's about painting the neck to look old. So in this video, and this is sort of like a little bit of a disclaimer, I would say, in this video we are going to make the neck look like it has an old finish on it, basically like it was finished, I don't know, in the 60s or something like that, and it's been allowed to get decolorized or whatever you want to call it by being around since the 60s. And then I'm gonna make another video where I relic the neck, which is like making the neck look old and worn in. So that's why it might be confusing, because maybe you want to make a guitar and you want it to feel like it's an old guitar that has, been locked in a closet for 50 years or 60 years or something like that, and no one's touched it, and you want to be the one who plays it and wears it down and makes it look relic. So in this video we're gonna basically make that kind of a neck, because the thing is, right now I've put on a layer of lacquer. You might be able to see that it's a little bit shiny. It's a very thin layer, and we're gonna work with really thin layers, and this is basically how a new guitar neck looks. And over the years it will get darker and browner and have, almost like a tan or something. And it will have discolorations in different places. So we're going to try to work that in as well. But hopefully by the end of the video, you will feel like, okay, I get what he's trying to do and say. And that's why I was unsure on if I should do 1 video or 2 videos, because it's kind of hard to just explain this without doing it or showing it or talking about it in a separate video. I also want to quickly say, because this is how I do it, I usually take a scrap piece of wood and I bolt the neck to it, and I use springs as little spacers so that I can get in under, because on a neck like this, where it's supposed to be old vintage, you don't want the pocket to be unlacquered. And the reason why I use springs is because when I go to unscrew this, the screw stays in because they're held in place by the springs. So if this looks, I don't know, weird and wonky and you don't understand what I'm doing, then now you do. And I am at some point going to make a actual like plate with a real holder and not just a block that has screws and springs and everything for it. And when I've done that, I'm going to make a guitar builder's life hack about that, because I feel like having a tool and not just always taking another piece of scrap wood will be great. So I am at some point going to do that, and I'll make a video about that then. So look for that guitar builder's life hack if you want to see something like this, but it's actually, not just a piece of wood. I also want to say one thing that is going to be very important that you're probably not going to understand from just watching the video, so I have to say it. And that is, every time I put on a layer of lacquer, I'm going to leave that to dry for about 4 hours. That's what my can of lacquer is saying that I should do. And so that's what I'm going to do. You have to read the label instructions on the kind of lacquer you're using and follow it at least somewhat correctly. And so I'm just going to cut away, and we're going to put on a couple of layers, and we're going to go from there. Last thing before we get started, I'm sorry this is a really long intro, but hopefully the rest of the video will be sort of short or something. The last thing is, I am gonna relic this neck afterwards, and so if you feel like, whoa, he's going a bit extreme and he's not staying on the subtle side, it's because I need to match this up with the body, and the body is pretty beat up. It's not a very subtle relic job. And that's because it's obviously tried to look like Mike Bloomfield's Telecaster, and I want to match the neck up to that. So I'm going to make the neck look a little bit more extreme than maybe I would do. If you're not making a guitar that looks like someone else's guitar, and you're not doing something that is supposed to be super relic, I would say you can do what I'm doing, but try to stay more on the subtle side than what I'm doing. Because what I'm doing is going to look kind of extreme, I think, by the end of it. Keep that in mind as you're watching the video, that I'm going for a less subtle thing that I would normally do if I was just making a guitar that looked beat up and old. Let's get into it and see what happens. Okay, so here I have a spray can lid. The reason why I use a spray can lid is because I have them laying around after I've used the spray can, and you can always reuse them. And they're a perfect little box for mixing things in. And in this I have a little bit of white spirit that I blend out with my lacquer, and then I've added some brown lacquer stain and some yellow amber lacquer stain. And now I'm just going to put this on the guitar neck and use this to make my first layer, and hopefully you'll see that it changes a lot. And I'm going to put it on with a brush, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it as even as possible and not have as many strains from the brush on it. It would be better to do it with a spray gun, but for this entire build I haven't really been using a spray gun that much, and so I feel like doing it on the neck would be kind of weird. So I'm putting on the layer with a 15mm brush. It's thin enough to be useful, and I'm just going to put on layer after layer and building up the color that way. It's how I do it, and I can stop when I feel the neck has the right color. Okay, so I made a mistake, and that is that I didn't sand the neck well enough. So when I started putting on layers of lacquer with dye in it, the dye took much more to certain areas than others, and after applying a bunch of coats I realized that it's looking ugly and bad, and so I had to resand the entire neck and redo it. And I didn't film that process because I just felt like it was a lot of the same, and basically the only thing that you're doing is you're putting on a layer with a little bit of tint to it, and then another layer with a little bit of tint, and by doing that you're basically tinting the neck. And so I've already shown you how to put a layer on, so I just thought I'd skip to when I've already put on a bunch of layers, which is now. Now I did change the color saturation a little bit more because it was a little bit too subtle for what I'm doing, but if you're not going to relic the neck afterwards, which means making it look beat up, if you just want the neck that looks old but doesn't necessarily look beat up, you should probably go with a more subtle look than what I'm doing. So what I'm showing you now is the result of several coats over the entire day. It's a new day than the first day. Anyway, so I'm going to show you now my next thing, which is after you put on a bunch of coats and they're starting to dry, we need to mess them up a little bit. And I'm just going to show you how I do it. And right here I have a tiny amount of lacquer. You will not need that much. It's you know, a very small amount. I don't know if you can see how little that is. And it is basically just a little bit of lacquer and a little bit of black and brown to just darken it up. So if we look at the neck, you see here that it's very dark, and the color is somewhat uneven, but that's okay because we are going to make it look even more uneven in certain areas. And I'm going to talk about that right now and show you, so you understand what it is I'm trying to achieve. Keep in mind that I'm not going to focus so much on the middle here. I'm going to still show you a little bit of it because I do need to focus a little bit on the edges, but I'm going to remove a lot of this lacquer here in the middle because I want that sand back, you know, finish has been worn off over decades of playing. And you can think whatever you want about that. So I'm using a brush and I'm using some tissue paper and some tape, and I'm trying to create blotchiness and unevenness and dirt and grime and discoloration
and just messing everything up as much as I can to create interesting patterns and griminess and distress within the lacquer, trying to make it seem like it's been through things, like been hanging on a wall and the stand has have a reaction with the lacquer, or it's been grimy and dirted up by being in a smoky bar. Just use your imagination, you'll think of something, and just go crazy. Okay, so that's basically how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it more, and I'm going to add some other colors in, put some spaces where I use a little bit more of the brown and a little bit less of the black, and just create like blotchiness of unevenness, if that's even a word. But yeah, I'm not showing you the entirety of doing that because this is more of a creative freedom thing, you know, be an artist. Then I follow every step perfectly. I need to let it dry now, and we'll be back once I've put on just some clear coats to build up a protection of the areas. And then I'm just gonna have to let it dry for about a week and really gas off and really become solid, one layer protecting the neck. And then I can go to sand it and buff it and make it look the way it's supposed to do. Okay, so it's been a couple of days now and the neck has been left to dry. It's not completely dry yet because first you have 4-hour working space where you can put on layers. So it's put on a layer, wait 4 hours, put on another layer, wait 4 hours, put on another layer, blah, 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 that sort of deal. And then it's a week or something to let the neck truly dry so you can sand it. And we're not there yet, but we can still do some other work on the neck while we wait to sand it. Because the lacquer is dry enough that you can touch it, but not dry enough that you can sand it. So we're going to wait a few more days. When it comes to an old neck, there is one thing that a lot of you probably know about, and that's the fact that Fender used to use a veneer board. It basically means that the curvature of the fretboard is matched to the back of the neck. This line here. And they changed in, I think it's the 80s, like 1980, to a slab board. That meant that the neck is flat and the board is a piece of wood that is put on top, and then the curvature of the neck is put on, or the radius of the neck is put on top. And so this neck, because it's not even a Fender, it's a Harley Benton neck, is just a slab board. So what we can do is a faux bow, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, the thing is here, and I know some of you are going to say this thing to me in the comments, and it's okay, you can write it in the comments, but I'm going to say it anyway. This neck has a 22 frets, which is not period correct. I think it was in the 80s that they started using the 22 frets. And it's also a slab board. It's also very thick, as you can see, hopefully, or at least you will pretty soon. So it's not period correct. But this is more to get the feeling of this being an old neck. It's not so much making this into an old neck. I'm not trying to make something that is period correct. I'm trying to make something that has the look of an old neck. And the faux bow will be the right thing. So I'm going to show you now how to make one, and hopefully you'll agree that this helps the neck along. But you have to do this in a subtle way and not go overboard. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to try to show you now how to make a faux bow, and basically it's going to be super simple. And this is for when the neck is on the body, it's not for when it's not. So it might look a little bit weird. And so what you do is you take a piece of masking tape, and I don't know if you can see it, but I've made a line on it. And that line there is the curvature, same as the curve on the fretboard. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to try to align it with the fretboard edge. So, and now, hopefully you can see that line there. I don't know if you can, but hopefully you can. Let me just grab a pen. There's a tiny line going across here, and it should match up with the fretboard, and you should have somewhat the same thickness here now, across here, as the thickness of the actual fretboard. If you make it thinner, it's gonna look wonky and weird. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but try to make it as close to the same thickness so that it's not noticeable that the fretboard becomes thinner or something. So now I'm just gonna do a quick little cut with a knife or an X-Acto blade on that line. And just try to be super careful. And obviously if you can do this after you let the lacquer dry completely and gas off completely, and also after you've buffed and sanded. That will be better, but I really don't have the option. So that's the wood that we are now going to carve away. And you can do that any way you want to, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it, because I think that's the easiest way for me to get this done. Okay, so here's the neck, and I'm going to use my Dremel. And you can use a sanding disc that looks like this, or you can use a saber tooth little tooth. It's basically the same thing, it's just this has a tooth. And it's basically like a rasp. And I'm just going to go in there like this, and I'm just going to remove that wood, and try not to dig into this side right here too much, and just carve that away. Okay, so now we can remove the tape, and as you can see, I did slip a little bit up here. That's okay, I can put in something to fix that. And if I move the neck into a little bit less of a steep angle, because obviously the angle of how you see it will, you know, break the illusion. But if I hold it like this, you can see the cutaway. But if I put it in something like this, it will sort of give the illusion. And you will have a body lying here. So the edge of the pickguard will basically be, you know, somewhere around here. So yeah, all I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do some sanding right here, and I'm gonna put some dye right here to just hide the fact that I a little bit went into the went into the neck here and removed a little bit of the lacquer, but it's okay. And then I'm also gonna sand this to make it a little bit smoother. Put some dust and super glue mix in that corner there to just fix my little mistake, and we'll go on to the next part.
So rounding over the end of the fretboard is a perfect way to get that old guitar feel, and it's something that you should do if you're relicking a neck, but it's also something that you should do if you're just trying to make it seem like an older neck. And so all I'm doing is I'm taking a razor blade and I'm just removing a tiny bit of the wood, and then I'm sanding afterwards.
The last thing we will do before we leave the neck to dry completely is we're also going to round over here at the end. If you look at a lot of the old guitars, you will see that this is basically completely destroyed on a lot of them. And it has to do with the fact that the strings will bite into this area a lot. And you can even see it on some guitars that aren't that old. Take a file and just gently, and I know some of you are going to say, why not do some of this before lacquering the neck? And that's because you don't really get the feeling that the neck that the lacquer has been removed by playing and wearing if you don't put it down first. Obviously this bow thing you could do afterwards, but I kind of would do before the lacquering, but that I just kind of forgot about it. And then I remembered, oh right, I was going to do that. That was like the main reason why I wanted to make this video. You know, I wanted to share this silly thing. Something like that, it's pretty. And if I put a little bit of finish on it, it looks pretty good. Okay, so the neck has dried and is ready to go. Here I have some 360 wet and dry sandpaper, and it's time to sand the neck, so I'm just going to start doing it like this. And I'm going to go like that and switch out the paper until I've come up to somewhere around 1200 grit, and I'll be back once I've done that. So just let me sit like this for a bit. And I'm going to be moving the neck like this and get the light to shine on it so I can see all the dull spots and all the high spots. The high spots will be the spots where you can still see a little bit of the shining of the lacquer on it. And I'm just going to try to make everything even. Okay, so I have the neck right here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to polish it by hand to give it, you know, a nicer finish than it has right now, because it looks very dull now. It looks machined dulled, and what we want is to have more of a dullness that is more age related, which is it's hard to define and to maybe give you a super good explanation of what that is. But if you look closely at old guitars that are, you know, actually old guitars, vintage guitars, you will see that they still have a sort of shyness to them, but it's a matter, duller, satin sort of kind of finish. We can't have it be completely satin, we have to buff it up a little bit. So I've cut out 2 pieces of cloth. Now this is polishing cloth. It looks sort of like a big tissue roll, but it is actually not real paper. It's like cotton or something. And the reason why I use that, and why I've used that in a lot of videos that you have seen, is because it doesn't fray the same way that like paper does, and it leaves weird stuff. If you put like lacquer on this and you smear it over something, it will stay as just a piece of cloth. While if you do that to a piece of paper, as soon as the paper touches something, the paper is going to rip and be stuck to whatever
you try to do that too. And on that, I'm just going to use some regular car polish. This you can buy anywhere where you can buy supplies for cars, and it's just, you know, what you use to give your car a little bit extra buffing. And so we're just going to take a little bit of this and put it on the cloth, and then we're just going to smear it on the neck, this, and try to work it in. And you just need to use a lot of force like this, because you need to work up a sort of heat thing, something like that, you know, just work it back and forth for a couple of minutes. You can use your palm like this and just really work it in there. And then when you're sort of happy with the area and you feel like it's good, I don't know if you can see it, this is very dull. I still have some high spots on it as well, but this has a nicer sort of sheen to it. And then you just take the clean cloth and you buff it a little bit extra with the clean one to just pick up the tiniest amount that might be left. You don't want that on your guitar. And then you just take and you do the same to all the sides, all over the neck, not the fretboard. I hope that's obvious to you, but if it's not, just know that you don't do it to the fretboard, you oil the fretboard. And I'm not do this to the neck or down here, because I'm going to relic it in the next video. But if you've done the entire neck and you've sort of made this messy globby thing all over the neck and things like here, then obviously if you're not making a relic neck out of it, you need to buff and sand everywhere. I just skipped the middle because I'm gonna sand all of it off anyway in the next video. So there's no point in doing something that you're not gonna use anyway. And once you're happy with the neck and you feel like it's nice and the way you want it to be, then we can put it back on the body. So I'm gonna do that right now and we'll get some closer looks at it, okay? Okay, so here's the guitar body. You've already seen it, hopefully. If this is the first video you're watching with all this building of this guitar, I don't know what you're doing. But yeah, Mike Bloomfield's Telecaster modded crazy experiment video series is, yeah, this is the neck, the way it looks right now. I think this looks really nice. I really like it, and obviously we have this spot in between here to here somewhere where it maybe looks a little bit weird, because why would it be super grimy up here and here and have nothing in between? But as I've said before, I'm going to relic it, so I didn't bother doing all that work since it was going to be destroyed. And yeah, so a little bit more close up around the areas that matters, I suppose. And here's the headstock area as well. So just, you're going to get better pictures of this along the run, because I'm going to do some community posts, just sharing some pictures. And some of you with keen eyes will see that I sanded through on some areas. And if that's something that bothers you, I would say you need to go back and do some more lacquer layers and put in a bit of color and just do a touch up and blend. I've done videos about that as well before, so you can look at my channel for like fixing dings and scratches and things like that on guitars, and you will find that. But I am gonna relic this neck, and so I'm just gonna incorporate some of this blotchiness that I've got into that. So there's no point in me putting that work into the neck right now, since I'm gonna relic it. But there it is anyway. And I think it looks rather nice on the body. I feel like it doesn't stand out too much. And as you probably can see, the body is really reliced. I did try to make it like, you know, his guitar. Okay, so we're gonna start off here, and as you can see, I have sanded through the lacquer a little bit. If you saw my last video, you know I said I did that on a couple of spots. So I'm just gonna try to break up this little area here. When I cut out the body here, I did a little bit of a mistake. It wasn't as obvious on this neck as on the other one. It was just a third of a mil or something that this overlapped, but on this new neck it is actually more. It's more like a mil, maybe 1.5. So the lacquer here would be, I feel like, a little bit removed, and so I'm just gonna try to break it off a little bit to make it look a little bit more messed up. And I try to move my knife in a sort of random on professional way, which maybe doesn't make any sense when I say unprofessional, but what I mean is when you use a knife there is a correct way of using it and moving it. I try to make like the opposite of that. I'm just trying to make it look like it's peeling away in all sorts of weird directions, so that it looks a little bit more jagged, something like that. We might come back to it later. I'm going to do it a little bit on this other side as well, because I do have some sand through here as well. I'm going to leave this for now, but I am going to sand this back. And so I'm going to take a permanent marker and I'm going to try to maybe draw in some sort of line where I want it, so that I sort of have a rough idea of what I want. Something like this maybe. Don't, like I've said in other videos, don't overdo it with the marking out, because you don't want a straight line. You want to sort of let it naturally randomize itself into that line, but a rough sort of line of where you want things to happen will be good. And now we can put on some of this liquid rust just to let it grayen up the area. It will take a couple of minutes, so I'll show you some of it once we are happy and done with the body. And now let's just move up to the headstock, because that's where we're going to do most of it. And then obviously we're going to sand this off. Okay, so as you can see here, I do have a lot of sanding through here. And so we're going to have to mess this area up quite a bit. And I'm just going to start off with a sort of weird jagged movement. And I think I'm going to find something to hit against it, maybe a little bit, just to create some dings. I'm going to try this hammer. I have this random block of concrete. It has a bunch of small stones and it looks really jagged and bad. And I rarely use this, but since this neck is so over the top, and also I need to do something about this area, just hit it against here a little bit and try to create a sense that maybe this guitar neck took more beating than, you know, maybe it's good for it. I mean, obviously it's good for it. I'm just trying to create a sense that it's a little bit more damaged maybe than, I don't know, maybe during a gig or something I dropped it on a really bad floor, or maybe dropped it while busking or something. Could also be. And now, because of this looking like that, I'm just gonna gray it up again, brush this on, slaver it all over the place, and I might go back and redo it a couple of times till it becomes as grey as I want it to be. And I'm gonna mark out something up here as well, maybe something like that, just some lines to help me know where to start. And there you can see the lines, just to let me know what to do and where to start. And so I'm gonna come back real soon. I'm just gonna do a little bit of touch-up relic here and there. So while I wait for things to dry and the grayness to take place, I'm just gonna sand the neck, and I'm gonna try to remove some of this finish here to get back to the wood and just work up to this line. So I'm sanding and I'm letting my sandpaper basically hit that line, and I'm just trying to stop on that line as much as I can. So yeah, and I'm using right now 360 wet and dry to sand away what I've got. You can see here I'm already starting to get down, but it is a little bit harder up here. So I'm moving on to this side, because obviously the neck has an upper part and a lower part. And so I'm doing the same thing. I'm just sanding and I'm trying to stop on the line that I've
drawn, but I'm obviously gonna go past that line a little bit, just because that's how the moving your hand fast will do that. You can't perfectly stop on the line, and that will hopefully help me create a blend from where the lacquer and the raw wood starts and stops and meets, and some weird in between. But you can already see here how the rust effect of graining the wood has started to take its effect. I'm gonna continue sanding this, and while I talked I realized that my paper is dry, so I need to put on some more wet water to wetten it up again, and then we'll get back to it. What am I doing? Okay, so as you can see here, I've just sanded everything away, and I've sanded it up to I don't actually know what grades I stopped on, but yeah, I sanded it at least very high, and then I wet it down and let it dry and sanded it again, and I've tried to create this peel effect. And right now, which you can't see because it's slowly happening right now, I can't speak. Right now I've just put on some more of that liquid rust, which is just vinegar and rust from metal, and so it's just slowly turning grey. And so I'll be back once I am happy with the amount of grey we have, because the more you put on, the darker it becomes. So here's the neck right now, and it's has a pretty well greyish color, and I'm gonna put on a little bit of shellac to protect the wood and let it sink in, and so that I can sand it. And I'm just gonna take every grey spot and every thing, and I'm just gonna apply just a little bit of it, and I'm gonna leave it to dry and then apply another coat, and then I'm gonna sand it. If it feel like it needs it, I'm gonna apply another coat again after that, because yeah, because I do want the wood protected when it comes to the sanding afterwards. And also the dings that I have up here on the neck, they need a little bit of protection, and you know, just something in there to make it a little bit protected. I'm gonna go over all the scratches and dings I did in a second. Well, at least in a second for you, not for me, because I need to do this a little bit longer. Okay, so right here there's a lot of dings and scratches. That's because that's the top of the head. Whenever you hang a guitar on the wall, you might accidentally bump this into a ceiling. This is also one of those places that, you know, like stabs into something if you accidentally knocks into something. So I did a lot of scratches here. I also did some on the edges, like here on the upper edge, just remove some and ding it up and scratch it. You can see some scratches and dings, as well as this edge here can accidentally be bumped and dinged and scratched. This edge here is a little bit less relict, as I hope you can see, but I did get a little bit of damage up there, and it's just because I feel like you gotta have something that has been on that side at some point, just a little bit. This edge right here is also one of those that can just take a little bit of damage, but usually it's more from the back, which I don't know if you can see it, but I did do some right there. It's the same thing here. We have a little bit of wear and tear along the edges where the neck becomes square. It's just the corners there are easily knocked off, and I did a little bit of a stab there just to like break up the pattern. Maybe something's happened there. And then there we have the edge where the finish has been slowly removed. And then we have the neck right along here, and the same thing here, some wear and tear, just sanded through, removed. And here we have some dings and scratches along the side as well. Just, you know, when you turn around with the guitar hanging on a strap, you don't see what you hit, so this is a perfect place for some damage. It's the same with this corner right here. Is also one of those just accidentally hits things. And the back side of the upper horn as well. Just trying to find some spaces for accidental hiccups or whatever you want to call it.
My sister recently redesigned my logo for my guitars, and she is the one to have done all the other logos that my guitars have ever had. And sometimes she's like, it's time for, a new one, redesign it, redefine it, make it better, make it look, more something. And she did it again, and this time she actually made it into a decal. And so I was thinking, I need to try it out, I need to test it, I need to put it on something. And I don't know what to put it on, so I was thinking I'd put it on this guitar right here. I feel like it's okay, because I've done so much to this guitar that it's not really hardly bent on anymore. And I don't know, I mean, it's not like it's, becoming more valuable or I'm tricking anyone, It would be a different thing if I put on a Fender one. And I've seen videos of people doing that, and shame on you. Anyway, so what you need to be able to do this is obviously a guitar that you want to put a logo on, and you need a printout on special kind of paper that is called decal paper or transfer paper, and you get that in your local arts and crafts store, or you can buy it online, Amazon or eBay or something like that. Most of them come for laser printer, so you need to have a laser printer. You could also on some websites design them and print them and have them shipped to you in arcs, and you get a bunch of the logo. It's a good thing to do if you want something a little bit more fancy. I'm going with just black, but if you want something like gold or glitter or something like that, you're gonna have to look up a website where you can do that. I don't have any website to recommend, so there won't be any links in the description. I don't build enough guitars where doing something like that would be justifiable to me, at least. So yeah, let's jump into this. The only other thing you're gonna need in this and a guitar is you're gonna need a little bit of steel wool to scuffen up the area where you want to put it, but be careful so you don't scuff up too much. And you're also going to need a bowl of lukewarm water. Not too warm, but try to make it like... Yeah. You know what lukewarm water is. Why am I trying to explain that to you?
Okay, so first off, you have to sort of figure out where you want to place the logo. And obviously, if you are, doing something very special where you need to actually be very careful of where you put it, this could take some time, but I'm not really like that. I'm just, I'm doing some sort of eyeballing most of the time, and then I'm just trying to put it out basically somewhere where I feel like it's gonna be roughly okay. When you cut these out, which is something I probably should have said something about, try to make sure that you're not leaving any rough edges so that you're cutting a smooth line all around. These pieces don't need to go on very good. They're just there to help you out, basically. Something like that. I think that's going to be good. Okay, so here's a Moomin bowl with lukewarm water. Now you don't necessarily need to use a Moomin bowl, but I would say that it makes everything go a little bit easier and better. And if you don't know what Moomin is, you need to start reading. And we just put it in, and we make sure it gets wet all over. And then we just leave it for a couple of minutes to soak up. And letting the layers, because it's basically a plastic film and a backing paper, and we're just we're leaving it there to soak up. And it's gonna take a couple of minutes, and while it's soaking up, I'm using some steel wool and I'm just scuffing up this area where I know that the print is gonna go. You don't need to do that much scuffing, but something like that. And then we just dab on with our fingers a tiny bit of water, and then we can gently pick up the logo, and you can see how the paper and the logo is separating and it's sliding off, and so we're just gonna slide it on and press it out with our fingers as gently as we can to make sure all the air bubbles disappear and that it lies as flat as we possibly can make it. Something like that. It's a little bit out of frame, sorry. That looks pretty good, I think. Then we take a piece of paper and we fold it into a little paper tool, and we can just press gently, very gently, on the decal in all directions to try to smooth everything out. Just get everything to be neat. And we can take away the tape and just trying to dab like this to remove all the water. And I have a little bit of an issue right there. Gonna see if I can press this paper there to make it a little bit better. And I screwed everything up. God damn it. Yeah, something like that. And it's really simple. This is probably the easiest way to get a logo on. I have shown you in other videos how to do some Mod Podge logos, and I've also shown you how to do a logo with burning in your logo. Those methods are really good and they work, and especially if you have like a stencil for burning, which at some point I'm going to show you how to make one of those. But this is definitely the easiest, cleanest, probably also the best way to do it. Obviously it depends on what you mean with best, but I mean, this looks like it's yeah, this looks good. This looks like it might be a real guitar. I mean, it is obviously a real guitar, but I mean a professional guitar you could buy in a store. Now we're just gonna leave this to dry a little bit and apply a very thin amount of lacquer. And I'm gonna hand rub it, so just hold on for a second, I'll be back. Here I have a tiny little bit of cloth, because I don't want anything to stick to this. If you use paper, it will become a mess. Now I'm just gonna put tiny bit of lacquer over this to protect it. And you, obviously, if you're making this while you're building the guitar, you would use spray lacquer, but since I'm doing this sort of as a recon thing, I'm just gonna put it on with this and just smear it out and get a neat, nice little protective. And you want to put on a couple of layers if you're doing this the correct way. If you're, building a neck and you're making it perfect, and then you're putting this on and then you're clear coating. So you have like at least, let's say, 3 layers or something. I'm just gonna leave it like this and have this super tiny amount because it's a relic and I don't want to mess with that too much. I should have done this before I reliced the neck, but that's not possible for me at this moment. Okay, so here is the guitar right now and the headstock, and I think that looks nice. I like it. Today, finally, we're gonna do something about the biggest issue this guitar had, because here's the guitar. And if you remember, when I actually built this guitar, these pickups that you get in the Harley Benton kit, they are not that fun. I don't really like them that much. They're not horrible, they're not bad, for a beginner or for just starting out, I suppose. But if you want to have something exciting and you want to have something that you can really have fun with and that you're like really love, you need to change those pickups out. Sorry to say. But anyway, finally, after a very long time of waiting, the parts that I want have shown up. Because, as you can see, the bridge is flipped upside down. And I was thinking if I flip it again, so it's not flipped upside down, then it's like a left-handed guitar. There's really nothing that says otherwise. And obviously you could go with the right-handed, reverse look if you want to. I finally got the new bridge, and this is what I've gone with. Humbucker size. That's cool. And here's the kicker. Humbucker size P90s. Humbucker size P90s. Yeah. I love P90s. Actually, I really do. I'm constantly in a debate with myself if I love single coils from a Strat or if I like P90s. And I have a couple of guitars with P90s, regular like Eardog P90s or soap bar style ones. I also have the bigger Fender, the Jazzmaster style one. And I really like all of them. They are a little bit different, but not that different, I would say. I think that the difference is overplayed. It's just a preference thing, basically. They're all good. The quality of the pickup is more important. But anyway, that's a whole other digression. Humbucker's P90 sized is something that I don't have a guitar with, and I've never had a guitar with. And it's one of those things that have slipped under my radar and that I sometimes remember like, ooh, I should try that out. And then I forget about it. And then I'm like, ooh, I should try that out. And then I forget about it again. But now I finally have a pair. I have a bridge for it. There is no excuse. There is no getting around it. We're just gonna get this going. We're just gonna start. We're just gonna because you're probably going to want to know, maybe,
or not. These are super inexpensive, crappy pickups from eBay, I think I bought them up. Anyway, they're the cheapest one you can find. And the reason why I went with that is because I'm not sure that this is going to be something I want. And then I can just pop in a couple of humbuckers. I have some humbuckers from nicer brands laying around that I can use. But if I'm like, ooh, this is pretty good, it's not great. These pickups actually come with Alnico 5 magnets. And so then the only thing that I need to do is rewind them. And if you've been subscribed for a while, you know that I recently made a pickup winder and that I'm slowly going to work towards getting into making pickups. If I feel like it, I can rewind them, and then I have everything I need. I just need, new wire, and I need to rewire them. And that could be really fun and cool. And a totally fun experiment and a totally different kind of mod for this guitar. Just so many opportunities flowing in the air when I think about that. So that's why I went with super inexpensive pickups. I also like the idea of maybe we doing that, like, what happens if we take really inexpensive pickups and we just rewire them, basically. Because if they come with the right magnets and they come with the right size bobbin and they fit in your guitar, then the only thing that really stopping you is the wiring of it. And it's just a spool, basically, so it can't be that hard. I mean, I assume that there is some craftsmanship in it and some finessing and thinking, but if you can rewire a pickup or rewind a pickup, and it takes, let's say, 15 minutes to do, and your pickups become 100% better, then it's worth it. Even if it doesn't become as good as some super expensive pickup, it can still be worth it. So that's sort of my thinking, the way I'm looking at this right now. That's what's the experiment that is getting me excited about doing this. Stick around, we'll see what happens. It's not going to be something that happens in the near future, because I want to put the guitar together and I want to put strings on it and I want to set it up and I want to play it, and I want to play it for a while, like 2-3 months maybe even, and just really figure out exactly what my opinion is. We are gonna mod these pickups already a little bit, because they come with this thin plastic here and you can just pop it and move it. I don't know if you could hear that. Anyway, they're flimsy, so we're gonna open them up, take a look inside, and see what we can do, and hopefully make a new shield or cover or whatever this black plastic thing is. Okay, so here's a pickup, and as you can see, you have solder joints right here. At least I hope you can see that. Yeah, you can. There's solder joints, and they are basically connecting this back plate here to this outer shield here. We're not going to go into why that is. It's a whole shielding, keeping noise and interference out thing. See, got through it real quickly anyway. I'm in a weird mood today. You have to break these, and it took a little bit longer to do than I was hoping, but it's doable. You just need to heat them up and remove the solder. Anyway, I did it to this pickup so we can see it without having to do it, because yeah, it takes too long. And here's the plate, and as you can see, super thin, stupid little piece of plastic. I don't know how thick it is, but I can measure it anyway. I'll do it later. This is what it looks inside, and it's actually not at all what I thought. I don't know why I thought something else. I didn't think this is what I would see. This is actually a regular size single coil, but with 2 magnets. I don't know if this is actually how a humbucker sized P90 is supposed to look like, because as I've already said, this is new territory for me, but that's what it looks like. And I don't know. I need to think a little bit, so I'll be back real soon. But let's first measure this thickness here. So let's see here. How thick is this? This is 0.8 mils thick. 0.8, which means that it's close to being a mil, but not really. And so replacing this is going to be kind of hard, I think. Especially if we want to go with wood, because we need to find a really thin veneer. And I don't have any veneer, because I basically never use it for anything. I'm gonna have to think about this for a little bit. So I'll be right back. At least for you it will be right back, but for me it might be days. No, I'm not gonna let it take that long. But anyway,
Bye. Okay, so I have these two options. I could either go with one of these humbucker covers. I think that could look a little bit cool, but obviously the holes are in the wrong place. So I was thinking that if I put this on the other side, we would have this cool blacked out holes sort of look. And that's actually, you know, not bad. But then I looked around in my parts drawer for arts and crafts, which has nothing to do with like the workstation or anything like that. And I found a little bit of veneer that is for making cards, and it's wood. And I was thinking that if I use this plate as some sort of backing and I put this on and I cut out the holes, or at least try to, and yeah, but maybe that could look cool. Have a little bit of wood, and I can stain this because it has a film on the back. Move with this, so I'm gonna try that. So I'm just gonna take this piece of wood and I'm just gonna scuff this up a little bit. I think. Just a super quick little sanding, just because the issue I have with this, and it might come back and bite me later, is that the adhesive that comes on the thin wood veneer is, I have no idea if this is any good at all. And yeah, we might put this on and put everything together and be super happy about the guitar, and then a week from this video is done and released, everything might just fall apart. Now it's on like that, and we're gonna put it over to the other side like that and try to rub it down, get a firm connection, and then just take a scissor, and because the wood is so thin, you don't have to care about, you know, damaging your scissors or anything because it's thin. So I was gonna cut the holes out on the back here with a X-Acto blade and just you know, go around. But I remember I had one of these. They are hole punchers for leatherworking, and yes, I've done leatherworking, and I can just line the right size up, and hopefully it can cut through this. I might have to go through on both sides actually. I'm gonna see if I can line them up. Yeah, not super perfect, but I think it's gonna work, and I think it's gonna be better than using something else. Just gonna go in like this and cut the holes, and then go back, and I can see the outline where it cut like almost through the entire way, and just do it again, basically. Something like that. See if I can maybe take a screwdriver or something small and just, yeah, I can just basically poke through. Something like that. It became a little bit wonky right there, which is a little bit annoying. Let's see if we can maybe clean that up a little bit. Yeah, not 100% perfect, but I think that if I go to stain this, it's gonna hide that because it's gonna get closer to the black backdrop. So if we take the pickup, we can just do a quick push this on, and we can line this up again. Something like this. And as you can see, that looks pretty good. Can you see that? Yeah. I'm gonna stain this later. I'm gonna do the other one and come back. I'm gonna stain this because I think that matching this to the neck will be really cool. I have them stuck down with a little bit of masking tape, rolled up to a roll, just to hold them in place. And I have a little bit of lacquer stain, and if you've seen other videos, you know that I love everything that isn't water-based, because I don't have time for water. And I have a little bit of white spirit in here as well, and I'm just gonna color these in, basically, with an old messed up brush that I really should have thrown out. And I'm putting on a really thin layer because if you put on too much, it's gonna be really hard to remove. But if you put on a thin layer, you can come back and you can be like, I need a little bit more. So there it is. I'm gonna put on another layer and I'm gonna be right back. So here they are now. I painted them like 3 times, 3 layers I think, and then I put on a little bit of shellac as well, and then I left them to dry. So we're back for, I don't know, maybe I was gone 40 minutes or something. Anyway, we're gonna put them back together now, and first I'm just gonna figure out which one goes with which. So, yeah, we're just gonna put them back in there, and then put this back in, pops right back into place. And now, because everything is a little thicker, because of the plastic basically become a little bit thicker with the wood veneer thing on, it all looks a little bit more snug. And now I just need to, first off I need to put this one back in its place as well. And now we just need to take some solder and reheat these connections and try to get everything here to flow together again. It's gonna be super annoying because there's so much you need to heat up, but I'm gonna do it. So after you have made the connections here again, here's the pickups now anyway. And I hope you think they look cool, because I think they look pretty cool. So I'm first gonna remove this right here, just so we can get started. Real quickly, just take out the screws. We're gonna have to take out the screws for the pickup as well, because we're not yet gonna take off the pick guard and do some unsoldering of the pickup, so we're gonna have to have it just fall into the cavity for now, so that we can make some outlines and measurements of where things need to go, because I don't have a template for this that I can use to just line everything up, so we're gonna have to make some measurements. So now we can just take this off. You can see the original paint underneath. Very stupid little detail, but that's the way, you know, it is on old guitars. Anyway, here's the new bridge. I wonder if any of these holes are gonna line up. I don't think so. This hole here might be the only one we can actually use. So we're just gonna put this screw in here a little bit of the way. And this is all just because, you know, it's very much, you know, a sort of free form, free flow thing. So I'm just gonna put it like that and hold it in place. And I'm just gonna mark this out. I'm gonna use a razor blade because I have it on hand. Just score the sides here a little bit. Now we can remove this again. Now we can remove all these screws on the side and take the pickguard off, and we can unsolder the pickups and remove them because we're not going to use them anyway. So we can just take them out of the equation. Let me just unscrew these screws and I will be back with the next step. Okay, so I've taken everything off and soldered and removed the solder and the joints on the output jack and the pickups. So now this is off. I took off the neck as well because I just felt like, we don't need it. Okay, so I've put out the bridge. I used that hole and then I measured with the neck pocket and the alignment where to put some screws in so that the new bridge is in place. Super easy to do. Yeah, barely an inconvenience. Let me know if you get that reference, because it's not a guitar related one. Anyway, the thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the routing of this cavity doesn't overlap out here and becomes a problem, because obviously this has to fit in there. And this can actually become an issue because it's very easy to go over here. So that's why I've put tape on the sides here, so that we don't touch the tape. Yeah, I'm going to do some routing to try to avoid that whole mess of an area. And now I'm just going to take a pen. I'm going to use one of my super markers or whatever they're called and just fill in here. Doesn't matter if you get a little bit on the metal, just so we can see sort of where we are. Yeah, and we're going to remove a little bit more than this so that we have some wiggle room in there. And then we're also going to mark out these holes here as well, so that we have an understanding of where we can actually go, because it's going to be super easy to mess this up and I don't want to do that. So here we have it. Now I've marked out the black areas, and I'm gonna, this area here where the black is, I'm just gonna remove super quickly with my router. No issues, no problems, just freehand remove it. And then I'll be back for the tiny bits where we need to make room for these little ears that stick out on the pickups. Okay, so right here we have the route I've just done. It doesn't look that good, but it doesn't necessarily need to look that good. And also with the old routing, you get what you get, basically. I have the marks from the bridge right here, and I can put in this pickup here. And then I can see that the tape that is outside isn't super close to where the pickup is. So if I push this all the way here, and I score a tiny little thing here, and I push it all the way here, and I score a tiny little thing here. With a razor blade, I get super thin lines. I can free route up to that,
The pickup should fit in neatly and nicely, but the bridge should just have a tiny bit to cover up. And that's the sort of challenge that you're having. The pickup needs to sit there nicely and secured, but the bridge needs to not have a hole basically on the side. So when I come back, I will have just routed a tiny little bit here, and I'm going to try to do my very best to not go past that line and just really nicely up to it. And I know you can't see the line, but it's there. And it's here. Okay, so I've routed away and it looks a little bit jagged. Anyway, never mind. It all works. The pickup will fit in the cavity nice and neatly, and the bridge covers it up and you don't get any weird little holes on the side. So now we can move on to the next step. We don't need this tape anymore, or at least I don't think so. I super quickly, after routing this, also routed out the neck pocket. It's more hidden and I haven't done the hole in the pickguard, and so I just used whatever I had there and made it big enough, or wide enough, because it was already big enough in all other directions, so it fits in there. It's very sloppily made, but that's okay, because we're gonna hide it. And if anyone asks, is it okay to do sloppy work? No, I don't think it is, but this is my own private personal guitar, and I don't know what's gonna happen inside of here later. I might add a middle pickup or something, I don't know. I just don't want to focus on that sort of things too much. If this was someone else's guitar, and if I got like paid to do anything or anything like that, or if you get paid to do this sort of work, you should obviously pay more attention and do things properly. Just want to say that because I don't want to come across as someone who's just, you know, messing about and throwing things out, and it doesn't take this serious at all. This is my private personal guitar and we're just having fun right now, and so I don't feel like we need to overcomplicate it more than that at the moment. But yes, if I ever build a guitar for the channel to do a giveaway or something like that, I will never do this sort of sloppy work inside of that. I don't know, I'm rambling again. Sorry, don't mean to ramble all the time. I know I do. But anyway, now we're gonna go over to the pickguard. So we're gonna take care of this first, and I'm actually gonna see if I can carve this away and just, you know, use that line that I cut into as a sort of starting off point, and we'll just see how this goes. It should be easy, but you know, just because it should be doesn't necessarily mean it will be. And especially the corners here are going to be tricky. Would have been nice to have a already made template for this, but I didn't think about these things when I made this guitar. I think that looks nice. Let's see if we can make this work. There we go. It's a little bit hard to do, or not hard to do, but you need to use some force. I'm gonna clean this up with a file and just go slowly, and then match everything up with the bridge so that it's a really nice fit. It's almost ready already. Okay, so this cutout here is now big enough where this fits, and it's, yeah, it goes in there pretty neatly. I'm pleased with it. So now we need to basically transfer this pickup cavity size over here and make sure that it fits nicely. And so I'm gonna start off by putting down some tape, because it's gonna be easier to draw and mark out things on tape. So I'm just gonna line this up a little bit like this, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because we're just gonna use the tape to draw on. We're not gonna use it as some sort of measurement, and there's a couple of pieces of tape in between as well. So first off, we're gonna transfer the cavity to this pickguard. So we take the body, we measure its thickness right about here somewhere, and yeah, I put the pickguard back on the body and align
the screw holes a little bit. Just see. And now we can just can make some marks on this. So that when we route this, we know to align it with those marks, basically. Like that. I hope that makes sense. As I always say, and I always mean it, if something doesn't make sense to you, what I'm doing, just talk to me in the comments below. And yeah, we'll sort things out. Hopefully, you know, make everything make sense. I am obviously doing these videos to help out. Okay, so here's the thing. And it's gonna go up there, so. And we're gonna have screw holes over there. And we're gonna actually fill this in with this. So something like that. I hope this makes sense to you. It's, you know, I don't have any templates, I don't have any lines to follow really. So we're going off like this, and hopefully everything will make sense. And let's just mark this out and start carving that out and see how we're gonna do this in a way that is the best way to do it. Just, I don't know. Let me think about it. Okay, so I've scored a line around the entire thing, but there is a roundover. And so I'm going to use this tool that I made in one of my Guitar Builders life hacks. And if you haven't seen that, it basically is a little ring with a center in it. And this is a 5mm, that's why there's a 5. And it lets me basically figure out that if I want to drill a hole that aligns with these, then I need to drill where I poked. And I need to use a 5mm. So this is basically, I'm just using my awl. If you feel like I'm not showing it good enough where you understand, let me know, because some of these things I could do an extra video of just going over and trying to make it more understandable, I suppose is the word. Okay, so now I'm going to drill these holes, and I have the marking and I have a drill bit, the right size, 5mm. I'm going to try to do this without ruining everything. And I have a sacrificial board underneath just to make sure that nothing goes into my working surface underneath. Something like that. And now I should really only need to like connect the dots, basically. Which I don't know if you can see the dots. There they are. Sorry. Always out of frame, but never out of love. Yeah. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did earlier. Just cut until the middle falls away. And I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back and I've carved this out and I've refound it and filed it. Basically the same thing I did up here, which you can't really see, but up here. Not that much to show really. It would have been another thing if this was plastic, because you couldn't carve in plastic. You would have to make a template and route it out. And yeah, I'm definitely at some point gonna have to make a custom pickguard, because that happens all the time. That is made of actual plastic pickguard material. So we'll do that then. Anyway, now we're just gonna drill these holes here. Something like that. Now we can remove the tape. Some of you are probably gonna see this, or most of you, without me showing it, is what I'm trying to say. Here we have the holes for our pickup. But right here, there, and there, and there, we have the old holes that, I don't know, they look a little bit wonky and weird in this pickguard right now, so we're going to have to come up with a way to fill it. I also feel like that hole there is a little bit too close and I want to move it. And I think I want to move this hole over to the side a little bit as well. I'm thinking that maybe down the line I'll make a new pickguard, because there are so many things that look ragged with this pickguard that I don't know what I think about it. And it will be a pretty good thing to show you guys like how to make a pickguard template and things like that anyway. So it might be a good idea. Also, this pickguard is falling apart actually. You can maybe saw how that broke a little bit. So I'm thinking this for now, just to make it super simple and easy for myself and to not waste a bunch of time, that I'm just going to plug these holes up with a tiny bit of epoxy clay for now. I color this in with pencil later. And I'll hide them that way for now. And then once everything has dried, I can re-drill these holes and make this pickguard, you know, a little bit more perfect. Because if I just color these in, they're not going to be that super noticeable. And it's a very rusty guitar anyway, so it doesn't necessarily matter that much. And then I think I'm gonna look for some like really nice veneer or something and see if we can maybe use this as a template and make pickguards. And it could be actually kind of cool and fun, I think, because maybe, you know, if someone else wants to build this sort of guitar and they want a pickguard, I could make them a pickguard, maybe? I don't know, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm gonna put the guitar back together now. Whew, yeah, so now the guitar is put back together, and I gotta say that I think it looks really nice with these pickups. I got some in my eye, goddammit. I think these looks really nice. I think they look, it makes the guitar look better. I don't know what to say. Talk to me in the comments below, let me know what you think. The only issue I really have right now is that I think that maybe this pickguard doesn't, I don't know. I feel like it's not fancy enough with these pickup covers, and the whole guitar aesthetic is a little bit off. So I'm thinking, new pickguard maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. You're gonna have to talk to me in the comments below, because I don't know. It's just what I think when I look at it right now. It's getting really late. I've been working on this all day. It took forever, which I hope doesn't come across in the video, because I don't want it to be. But yeah, I have to go now, because we're gonna watch a movie and everyone is waiting for me. We're gonna watch Brain Dead, which is a movie from '92. Really awesome movie if you haven't seen it, and if you've seen it, you know it's awesome. And yeah, I'm gonna put strings on this. I'm gonna intonate it, fix it around a little bit, you know, stretch the strings. And then we're gonna go to video edit. But it's gonna be another day. Well, for you, it's gonna be right after I say goodbye to you now, because obviously I'm gonna record it later. Anyway, rambling, sorry, tired, need to go. Don't forget to press the like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications, because there's always fun things happening in this channel, or at least that's what I'm trying to do. And I'll talk to you in another video. Stay awesome and cool, and don't forget to go and play guitar, because it's been a long day here in the basement trying to build something, and don't build so much that you forget to play guitar, is what I'm trying to say. So do that. And also, I don't know, let me know what you think. I think this looks nice. I'm liking this a lot more each time I'm looking at it. I really think this pickup thing was an awesome thing, and it's a super easy thing to do. That wasn't very hard to do. It's all the other jiggery pokery. I'm gonna go, and here is a sound demo of these pickups. And let me also know in the comments below if you want me to put the sound clip from when the guitar was finished together with this sound clip and make a video just comparing the two pickups. So I could do that. I have the videos. Obviously I can't re-record with the old pickups because they're not in the guitar anymore, and I'm not putting them back in. Anyway, sorry for the rambling. I'm gonna go now. You're gonna go now. Do something else than watch YouTube videos and have fun. Watch Brain Dead. It's an old Peter Jackson movie. It's awesome. It's great. It's fantastic. It's fun and gory, and they're like weird Australian Nazis in it. So yeah.
Oh, God. It took longer to eat this entire cookie. I only have one leg left than I thought it would take. He was a big man, but now he's gone. Or at least, soon he's gone. But anyway, this is the end of the video. I'm actually starting to get a little bit sick. It was more cookie than I can eat. I'm too old for this much cookie, especially in one giant video format. That's no. But anyway, that's the end of this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. Talk to me in the comments below and all of that. You can follow me here on YouTube for more interesting fun things if you're new here. And you can also follow me over at Instagram if you feel like it. There will be more pictures of cookies because this was just one of them. And yeah, I'll see you. God, oh, it's too much cookie. And I'll see you next year. Thanks so much for watching this extremely long video. I hope you enjoyed it. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And until next time, don't forget to stay awesome and cool. And go and have some fun and creative moments now during the holidays. You know, hopefully you're off work and you're able to spend some time being creative and building things. So yeah, go and do that. It's all good. Even if you're doing something simple like, I don't know, repainting an entire guitar and, you know, something. Okay, time to turn the Christmas tree off. I should turn this one off first, and then the Christmas tree. Because now it's over. See you next year. Bye bye.